Alrighty, if we can stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everybody. So a couple of things on report of the chairman, and I'm going to go first before we get to this, because I have a feeling that the item A is going to end up the same way it was earlier, and since there's 3 and 3, so we may need to skip that to our January meeting. Our committee assignments, Jack did not bring the list, so do we want to hold off on that until January 2 so we can move forward with budget?
Probably.
All right, we'll skip that. Also, under the chairman's report, today I initiated a formal letter to the first selectman asking for a budget submission extension for 2 weeks for this year and moving forward. Nick actually put the idea in the head. So that is going on the town council agenda this evening, so that our submission possibly will change from the 9th to the 23rd. And that'll be hopefully this year and every year there is. Joe is going to the town council meeting this evening at 8 o'clock to plead our case. It is a long shot, given the fact that they're only getting it tonight, and they had very little notice, but we'll see what happens, and if they actually vote on the resolution to change our submission date. So we should know more tonight, and hopefully Joe will have some good news for us later. And I just wanted to say that I'll be jumping out of this meeting for the full orchestra concert a little later. So when anybody sees me walking out, that's why. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Thanks, Jerry. Thank you, Nick. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Thank you. We're not going to have our Massac board reps here this evening, so we will move on to public participation. All right. Great. We will move on to the report of the superintendent.
And the only item that we have on tonight is to talk about the budget. The fund statement. Frank's going to walk us through that first.
Do you have the printouts for us so that we have a comparison for going through the budget? We asked for that last time, to have the financials, the up-to-date financials for the current year, so that we can compare the budget to where we are year to date.
It's in your packet, the up-to-date financials.
So, we don't have a printout, it's just this.
Oh, it's the normal package that the board receives.
Okay, so we don't have
attached to my narrative.
Right, but we don't have a printout, that's just an online thing.
What did you want, a hard copy?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, didn't get that message.
Okay.
So Frank, do you want to walk us
yeah.
through? Yep.
Do you want to have a hard copy every month for me to hand out?
No, we just wanted a hard copy. We asked last Monday for hard copies because we wanted to compare that during our budget. When we went line by line through the budget, we wanted to have the up-to-date, year-to-date information for the current budget year so that we can kind of see everything together.
Okay. What was sent out with the agenda is my financial report, and it covers through November 30th. So that is the up-to-date that we sent out. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the key points in my narrative to the board. November is the 5th month of the fiscal year, and the special education filed for their excess cost on December 1st. And what that means is that that's going to affect the 2 special education accounts of public and private tuition. We're trying to be consistent in where the excess cost is applied. So in the current budget and the upcoming budget will be hitting just the tuition accounts, the public tuition, the private tuition for special ed. When that comes in, that will be applied to those line items. We'll point that out to you. And that check generally is received in February. So and that will make a difference. The hard freeze continues. As I noted, we see significant deficits in certain accounts, primarily in the health insurance account, which has been a dialogue with the town already on that, which is a big, big help. And I did want to point out to the board, in this month, in December, the financial report that you're going to get in January for the current month, what we're going to do is actually encumber monies for the health insurance account through June 30th. And that's going to be based on actual bills. The encumbrance is going to be larger than what's actually going to hit the Board of Education's budget. And the reason for that is that the way you're set up here is that the expenditures for health insurance goes through payroll. So currently it's the employer's share and the employee share. So we have to do the purchase order for the full amount. So the deficit that's going to show in next month's report is bigger than what it actually will be, because as we go forward after every payroll, we'll be applying the employee contribution, so it all irons out by June 30th. So I just wanted to give you a heads up so you don't get agita when you see that financial report that we give to you next month. We're also going to be going through the budget, and we're going to be going through the budget. We're going to be updating some of the encumbrances.
Thank you, Jack.
We're going to be
We needed
updating
some
of
comic relief.
We'll be updating some of the encumbrances in the salaried accounts, where we have some teachers that have been out on medical leave, and we have to sit down and release some of the encumbrances. So we'll have next month's finance report, we'll have a better idea of where you are. The hard freeze continues, which is a big help. We got the news last week that the special education costs are going up higher than what we previously had thought they would be. So we'll be putting all of that together and providing an update for the January report. So attached to my narrative is the financial statement dated November 30th of where you are. And then also attached to that are the special revenue funds. And there's no big changes in that. As I reported last month, we've updated the numbers in there so that we can see that each of the enrichment and intramurals program are going to be self-sustaining going forward. So, and I would point out one of the questions the board had questioned in the past regarding the prom, the post-prom money. There's roughly $3,000 a pop. We're carrying a deficit in the current year's budget. In the proposed budget that was sent to you, the budget for next year, we have built in $3,000 into the Board of Education's account. So that is a number built into the budget next year. So that concludes my report, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Yes.
Go ahead, Nick.
No, ahead, Nick.
I just have a quick question. On the financials that were attached, the
Yep.
pension line, the pension contribution line, this is just because I don't know. When does that get expended? Because it has year to date 13,473. So does that come towards the end of the fiscal year?
Generally, it'll come later in the fiscal year, and I'm looking at the pension. It should be a 2000 account.
752,300.
Pension contribution. Yes, we have not expended it or encumbered it. We'll be later in the fiscal year. We'll encumber that money and make the payment to the town for that.
And it's low this year because the town took some of the liability, correct? When we were
In the last fiscal year, the 18-19 fiscal year, if you look at the proposed budget that we gave you, we show you the actuals for 18-19, and it's a low number, which I think you picked up on previously, Nick, that, and the reason for that is the town basically refunded us our pension contributions in order to help balance out the fiscal year.
They
So when you,
paid
when you
they
look at the
paid it
budget
for us.
for next year, it's a true number of what's needed. When you look at the history, it looks odd because it's like $69,000 expenditure.
Right, because that was part of the balancing act with the
That was
deficit.
part of the balancing that the town worked with us in order to help balance out the budget last fiscal year.
Great, thank you.
They made the pension payment on our behalf.
Yep, thank you.
So it was funded, it just was funded by them. I don't
Right.
want people to think that the pension was not funded. It
Right.
was funded, just the town made the funding payment. All right, thank you. Yes, David?
Frank, do you know what our cost is monthly for the medical? What we paid monthly in medical, or could you get that for me?
Certainly, yes. Our projection out for the encumbrances is based on actual bills.
Okay,
And the bills are fairly constant. They fluctuate a couple thousand every month, depending who goes on and who goes off. But we have actual hard bills, actual bills that we're basing the projections on. We can get you that number,
okay, thank you. And then, yeah, just for budgeting reasons. And then the other thing is, in our current munis budget, there's a line item for Chalk Hill payroll taxes S, $45,000 a year. And it's in next year's budget. You know what that's for?
I'll have to take a look and see what it takes. So,
Okay, I
what
did
account? What was the object code on that?
752200.
Benefits.
The,
It's in the benefit. I'll take a look at that, Dave. and,
Yeah, there was another line item for Chalk Hill classroom library books that started minus $3,000. I see that's corrected for next year. But there were 3 line items for Chalk Hill, so that just, was a red flag for me, saying that that's
Good.
closed.
Yeah, when we go through the proposed budget and you have the detail, we'll pick up on some of these.
Linda does know something about that. We were just
Yep.
talking about that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Linda.
All right, any other questions before we move on? All right, so we'll get into budget detail. I do have a couple of things. Frank, on the special education sheet in the section of the budget,
The narrative?
the narrative,
Yep.
the narrative is incorrect on the example. It shows one student expenditure is 100,000. Monroe threshold, which is the 4.5 times, that's 79,360. Then the excess cost reimbursement at 20. Then it says under the state formula, the state is supposed to reimburse the district 79,360. That's not correct. They're supposed to reimburse us 20,640 because we have to pay the 4.5 times. They pay the difference of. So that's it, this narrative is incorrect and needs to be fixed, because that's not accurate.
I spoke to Jack about that last meeting, so that'll hopefully get updated.
Okay, so that needs to be updated and fixed and corrected.
Yes, we'll take care of it. Yeah,
Yeah, so then the rest of the numbers are then flow from that are also incorrect. So
Yeah,
that whole
we'll
section
pick
has
that
to be
up,
fixed.
it's wishful thinking that the state would reimburse you for your full cost of special education,
Right,
but it doesn't.
right. We still have to pay the threshold, so it's only gonna reimburse us at max 20.
The, yes, unfortunately, the state does not reimburse you for the full cost of the,
Right.
of the threshold, so, yep.
Yep, so if we can update this. Kay, did you go
Yep.
through this before it got published and make sure this was correct?
I wrote that.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote that.
All right, so
Yep.
Kay, if you can actually go through this and make sure this is all correct so that this could be updated. Thank you. And then on the questions and responses, if we can go to the one with regarding that whole other professional services,
Which page?
which is the first page, where it says we could break out the special education technology within this line. This is about the one where everything is in the dump one of other professional services. We can't go backwards since the POs have been cut. And then we'll lose budget, obviously the history. we need to correct this going forward. This cannot be a dump all account. So even if we have to lose budget history, we need to have it correct moving forward and fix this. And then you can just do journal entries to fix the current year.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, perfect, thank you. All right.
Donna, this is what you're looking for?
Yes, yeah. All right, so you're gonna go ahead and fix that one moving forward within the current budget.
There'll be several changes. When the board, the process is when the board adopts its budget, there'll be several changes made, both for updated information that we have and things the board would like to highlight.
Right, but no, I'm talking the other professional services. We need to break out that account
For showing, going forward, yeah.
going forward.
Yeah, and we can't do it going in.
Totally understand, but we need to make the correction moving forward so that
It's not
it's
a correction, it is correct, it's an adjustment of how you want to have the picture.
correct. We want it separated out by the different areas so that
Gotcha.
that is not just a dump all account where everything feeds into.
Donna,
Yes.
would you, just a clarification, would you, are you asking for it to be corrected in this current year that we're in?
Yes, not the current year, the
The current
budget.
fiscal year that we're
No.
in and the budgeted fiscal year?
Well, it depends on how difficult that is to move the journal entries around, which really shouldn't be, but at least for the budget
Budgeted.
moving forward.
Yeah,
For 2021.
At
Correct.
minimum, I mean, we could just go do journal entries, go
It'd be
through
more
that.
than that, all the purchase orders that have been issued, the whole accounting system is based on the current chart of accounts. And you don't want to go there. Because all the purchase orders have been issued, they've been all tied in with the financials, and if you try to adjust history now, well, the purchase order, it's a dynamite, it's a mess. So we'll take a look at then adjusting that going forward,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
And it's not a question of a couple of journal entries, it is a lot.
Right.
it,
But-
it, I'm sorry.
But we could do line item transfers to do that, same as we do for
Well,
other
it's not a
things.
question of transfers, as it is, then all the purchase orders that have been cut with the numbers have been assigned to that
Right.
account number, and now you start changing all that, you're creating a nightmare you don't need.
Is it feasible to expect it to happen in the budget year starting July 1, 2020?
Going forward, yes, Nick, yes, I think we can do that, we'll break it down into the major categories. And which categories did you want to have that broken down,
The
John?
3,000 series in total.
Right, so that so it should be other professional services for special ed, professional service for technology. It should be broken down to different main categories so that we have it separated out by like.
Maintenance,
Correct,
IT,
correct. That should all be separate so that it's not like one where there's some technology in there, there's some maintenance in there, there's some, special ed in there. It should be those should be separate. The ones that are minor,
we'll
Could-
take a look at that and show you where we come up with
Okay.
a couple of major categories.
Right.
Okay.
right. I'm really more concerned about breaking out a technology, a maintenance, a special education. That way we're not delving through mounds and mounds of work to try to figure out what a special ed cost for, occupational, therapy is in there. But like something minor that maybe gets spent $5,000 total for the year that doesn't relate to any of those, well, then that could stay there.
Yeah, and because you now have the detail of the budget book, you can slice it and dice it any way you want.
Right.
You already have that in the budget detail that we've given you. So if you want to even go further delving into it, you do have the information there ready.
Perfect. All right, so let's move on to then getting right into our budget detail. Okay.
So Frank was going to give us an overview of the book.
The board has been given a detailed breakdown of the budget, roughly 250 pages that was sent out, and it's been put into your black book that we provided to you. And then the finance staff took a considerable amount of time and broke it down by categories. The 1000 series, which is the salaries, the 2000 series, which is the benefits, the 3000 series, which is the professional services. So to make it easier to read, and then we worked in the Munis system to make the line items easier to read across. In order to fully understand that, you need the chart of accounts, and although we gave the board a copy of the chart of accounts previously in this budget book, we have printed out a series of another whole package of the chart of accounts. I just want to take a few moments and go over that so you can see the reading of the budget and how it works. The chart of accounts is dictated to local boards of ed by the state. It's called the Uniform Chart of Accounts. It's published by the state, and the boards of ed and the towns are required to follow that. And if you go onto the state website, you'll find it says state law requires municipalities and school districts to annually file the reports with the state prepared in accordance with the Uniform Chart of Accounts. So that we do have these rules and guidelines that we have to follow in doing the budget preparation. And it helps the state then in analyzing the expenditures and comparing school districts one to the other based on what they're spending and what they put in the categories. But the first sheet I just handed out is the summary. It's called Board Chart of Accounts Key Codes. And if you'll just turn to that first page, you'll see there's an account number on the left-hand side with a whole series of digits. And then the next one is Fund 7101. Everything that you receive on your budget is 7101. You can almost disregard that because all your accounts, the board's operating funds, are 7101 accounts. We have other accounts, grant funds, 7201, etc. But all your financials that receive are in the 7101. So that's a given. The last item on the right is the object code, and this is your key to your budget. The whole budget is systematically laid out by your object code. 75 is in all of the codes, and then it'll go 75 1000 series, which are salaries, 75 2000 series, which are the benefits, and etc. You go through each of the series, and those are the objects. And in the summary budget book that we previously had provided to the board, there is a breakdown by those object codes so that you can follow them. On this page here, the proposed budget summary, the salaries are the 1000 series, the benefits are 2000 series, professional services 3000 series, facilities 4000 series. Once you see what object code you're interested in, you can work your way back then to see where is this located. And the chart of accounts code that we gave you, the third set of digits tells you the location of the facility. And you see, and that ties in the detail so that location by building, 0101 is Monroe Elementary, 0108 Central Purchasing, Preschool, Fawn Hollow, Massac. So if you're looking to see what the expenditures are at a particular location, with this chart of accounts code, you can specifically figure out what location it's tied into. The program codes, the handout, they're pretty self-explanatory. If you're looking for special education or regular education, it tells you what goes under the program codes. And then you have the the object codes, they say, are the key to the budget. And once you have, it's a little complex at first, but once you start working with this, and again, starting with the object code and working back, you can go through all the detail that's been provided to the board and find out how much is spent by school, by location, regular ed, special ed, by English, art, you know, whatever you're looking for. So I would recommend that you keep this chart of accounts in the front of your notebook, and it'll help you then in looking at all the detail that's been provided to you.
All right, great. So let's start on in the first section, which is the 1,000 series. We'll start with the first account, which is the 110 account. Pretty much we have a change for every salary in there, which is probably just the contract of the 2.5%. Is the one person at the 4.3, is that because they're on a step?
All right, let me go over the 1,000 series if I might. Every item in the 1,000 series are based on contractual arrangements. Every one is tied into a warm body. We can tie a name directly into each one. There are a few things I'll point out to the board. If you wish to go through the 1,000 series, we can, but I just
We're going
say,
through everyone, so if we can just get started because it's like 6:30.
and I'm trying to save you time on that because the summary on the 1,000s that they're all based on contracts. A few of them are not based. You have 2 contracts that are not settled yet. The maintenance contract and the secretaries will be up for negotiations in the spring, and those are for contracts that start July 1. So the numbers that are actually on the specific line items are based on current salaries for those individuals of secretaries and for maintenance people. We did put money in the budget for contract settlement, and we've isolated that out depending on what eventually is negotiated with that. So that, in brief, is the 1,000. So any particular
Yep,
questions?
so
Al?
let's start with the 110, 75, 1110. So we have one person at a 4.3. Is that a person who's getting GWI and step for their contract?
Okay, and what page are you on?
That's the
One.
first page, 1.
Page 1. Okay.
I highlighted that one also. So I didn't know if that was step or bringing them up to par with everybody else.
I would
which is what
imagine
it
it's
looks like.
step. It's somebody, because this is the instructional leader's account.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's additional work in the summer. I hate to talk about people, but it's
Two
for the
lines from
instructional
the
leaders.
So
It's
it's additional work in the summer.
It's additional summer work to cover PPTs.
Thank you.
When Darlene and Kay are out, Jen steps in and she doesn't work those days, so she gets paid for those days.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to 2. Okay. And that is relatively all staying the same. We just have 2 contracts. Now, that's for the first one that's going up, the 2.4 is that's the director pupil. The first one.
That's the director and the assistant.
Well, the first line says director, right?
Well, underneath on the left-hand side, underneath it has the salaries broken out.
Yeah.
Right.
We provide the detail of the 2 individuals that are involved in that, the salaries and the annuity, all the details spelled out for you.
Okay. Anybody have questions on that? Okay. All right. So the last line, I think the biggest one here would be the minus 7.3%. What would that be for?
Minus, we're on the
The
next
last
page.
line,
On page 3, yeah.
page 3.
Okay.
The admin, principals, certified staff. PS, is that preschool?
Preschool. I think that's because Kelly's position is 0.8 Monroe Elementary Principal, the way it's budgeted, 0.2 preschool, decrease from Deb's. So I imagine that's why it's down.
Oh, okay, so that's because,
It's a newer person.
okay.
Yeah, and I had emailed Jack about this because at the top of this page, it shows the certified staff Monroe L principal is budget FT .8.
Mm-hmm.
So I had said, why is that .8? And for this particular principal, it's broken out, and I guess it's the top
Okay.
line and the
Right,
bottom.
point 2 preschool, and then point 8 is K through 5.
Right, so it makes
Yep.
up one which is dissimilar to the other elementary schools.
Correct.
But wouldn't then that make the top line less than 2? If the bottom line is going down, wouldn't the top line go down too if it's a cheaper person than what it was previously?
Well, if you add the top line to the bottom line, it's still under the two principals at Stepney and Font Hollow.
Yeah, that top line we need to look at, Frank.
Yeah, I'll,
Because I would think both would be going down, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because if it's a small, you know, a cheaper salary, because she's newer and on first step, both of them should be going down the same amount.
And there's a note there, Frank. It says one admin FTE point 8 of 154,535.
yep,
So that's the point 8 is the what we're
Point.
seeing
yeah,
for the departmental salary.
yes.
And the actual 2019 is 125,000. The 2021 is 123.
Yeah,
You
we've
follow me?
gone
It's
through, yeah, on each of these, we've actually looked at the person and their current salary and put them at the step that they belong. So if you have a specific question, we'll have to go digging into the,
Yeah, we need to dig into that, because if I add the 2019 actual, it comes to 158, and then the budget is 154. I would think that that's
you'll
not,
see a lot of adjustments in the personnel, either changes in staff but these were going through warm body by warm body to get the actual numbers in there. But we'll get to,
Yeah,
if you're interested in the name of the position and what you're interested in.
right, I think we need to look at that.
Frank, I think Jack brought up a good point, though. I'm still on that top line. And
Right.
if you look at 2019 actual,
Right, versus
it's
the department.
125,000.
Right.
Now go all the way to your right, Frank, and look in 2021, that person
It's
got
one-
cut.
It's
Got a cut.
123.
Well, right, because they're a new person, that was Deb's old salary compared to
Right.
Kelly's
Yep.
new,
But the percentage change shows
Was
an
a
increase.
percentage.
Right,
is a 2.6.
right.
That was, yeah.
Yeah, and the 2.6 would track the contract that was negotiated with the teachers.
The 2.6 is from the current budget year to the next
Right.
one.
Or the administrators, their
Right, but
contract's
do-
in effect too.
I understand,
Gotcha.
but did we have it, we need to check to make sure that that's correct and it's the right, that the person's on the right step, the whole deal,
We've
because,
done that with each employee, but we'll take a look specifically at that one.
because it just doesn't look correct. If somebody wants to go online, continue on, I'm pulling up the contract right now.
I have it up. What are you looking for? The,
Monroe L.
no, but you're looking for the,
Admin contract.
I have the admin contract open.
yeah.
We need to just make sure that those are right numbers, they just don't look correct. So, let's see, an elementary school principal, first year would be a 143, but she would be going second year, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
So that would be 145, but that total equals 154. So that can't be correct.
Oh.
What? Three, sorry.
Three for next year, that's right.
So that's 147. That's still at a 154 in the budget is still not the correct number.
We'll
Is
check
the,
that.
yeah, the annuity could be counted as salary is another,
There's several factors involved with that.
all right, so we need to look into that and we'll
Yep.
get detail on
Yeah,
that.
I would say if you have questions like that, if we get them ahead of time, we can check these out for you rather than trying to discuss them and trying to pull numbers out, particularly in any of the personnel accounts. We can look up and go digging into the actual salaries and how they were calculated.
Let's see, hold on. All right, so 154, 535. Okay, I was looking
That's
at the
correct.
wrong schedule. That
Yeah.
is the correct schedule starting July 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that is correct. Okay. So I wonder, so it looks like,
And it says the 0.8 of 154,535.
Yeah, I think if you add the 123, 628, and the 3907, you get the 154, 535.
Yep.
I think part of the problem, quite
Yeah.
honestly, is if I'm adding this, I think what's happening is that the 2020 budget was not budgeted to what's in the contract. That's what's happening.
You'll find that in several places.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, Joe? If you add those two
Yeah,
up,
it's 153 and it's
Right.
and it's 148.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's not even that. It's last year.
it's
That's this year,
150.
so,
Yeah, that's what's skewing it. The 2020 budget is not,
Right.
it does not correspond to what actually the
And
contract
that's
states.
creating that 2.6, right,
Well, it's created the whole thing.
7.3, yeah.
right.
You'll find that in several places. So that when we went through, we actually took each position and looked up each position and what they should be making. And oftentimes it did not meet the actual budget number.
Can I go back one step to the 111 count, the one we just talked about that we went over? In the actual available budget per the, as of November 30th, is there something not encumbered because there's an available budget left of $110,000? Did we not encumber something as of November 30th?
You looking at the financials we just handed out?
Yes.
Grab 'em.
It says there's 429 expended to date, 505 in encumbrances, available budget is 110. So did we not encumber anything in that line?
You'll see, looking at the financials, you'll see available budget, the 110,586. And look underneath it, you see 205,700. For a variety of reasons, there are several salaried positions that are not encumbered. And that's how your system has been set up.
Well, I totally understand like a teacher or an aides one, but an administration one, why would that not be encumbered?
On a certified staff.
Yeah, certified
because your business
administration.
Your business manager is not encumbered for the year. And that happens to be the position I'm sitting in right now.
So where is then in your
I'm
pay
hitting
going?
the account, but it's showing up as on the expenditures, not on the encumbrances.
So we've not encumbered anything for that for the rest of the year.
Correct.
I think we probably should,
Well, you don't know what your salary's gonna be.
but we can kind of take a guess because we know what we're gonna pay.
I don't know what you're gonna pay. You haven't decided
Oh, we did
who you're gonna
decide,
hire or what you're gonna hire at.
right, but we already decided what the pay would be as a board.
Yeah.
So I mean, that we can, once you bring that person on board and we know when their start date, we can then encumber that money from their start date and also tie that in with my wrap up and the charges of me against that account. But until we know both of those items, the encumbrance would not be accurate.
But isn't an encumbrance just an accrual? An accrual based on an estimate?
The encumbrance
It
in
could,
your payroll, your encumbrance is based on the actual salaries of your teachers. And we take those actual salaries and project out to June 30th what your encumbrances are. That varies during the year. If you have a teacher that goes out on unpaid leave, for example, that will affect encumbrances. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to be looking at those now for your financial report next month to see what encumbrances we can release. Your other items in here, you have hourly and hourly employee, that they are not encumbered. So it's your salaried
right,
people that we know.
hourly
Yeah.
people shouldn't be, but we should probably encumber, since it's an accrual and can be released and changed, that person going forward. That would be like, oh, I know I'm going to have a bill come up to this month, so I make an accrual because I know that's going to happen. And when the bill comes in, I offset it against the accrual, and then it washes out, and it's going to be a plus or minus at the end.
When we do encumbrances, we try to do them on what we know the actual bills are going to be. Try to be as accurate, but we don't guess on those.
No, I understand, but we pretty much know what we know what we're gonna pay and what our max is, so we should put in an accrual based on that.
But
Well, you-
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I think if the person starts January 15th versus February 10th, then the rate, the amount that they'll be paid.
Oh, no, absolutely, but it's just an estimate. It will be released you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? At the end of the day, you're gonna have, it's gonna wash itself out, and you may end up with a where you have extra money left over because you didn't pay it. It's just putting an accrual in that that expense is gonna happen.
Because you're saying the encumbrance looks extremely high relative to the other.
Well, it looks like, wow, we are really doing great, and we have an extra $110,000, which we know that that's not true, that we're actually going to be expending that within the year.
Or at least a portion of it.
Right.
Is it possible for us to shoot high with the encumbrance, so we have a marker there, and then,
Well, again, you tell me what to encumber. When are you going to hire the new business
I mean,
manager?
if we were to
what you
go
gonna
with,
pay him, and
yeah, if we were to go worst case scenario, early hire, maximum number of days of hire, I think that's something
we
we
can put an
could,
encumbrance in there.
okay,
Yep.
all right.
All right. All right, we can move on to then. Anybody have any other questions in there? All right, so the next one is our teacher, certified regular ed staff. And there's lots of different movement here with lots of huge, increases and decreases.
Part of the complexity with this is teachers who move between schools, and there's portions of FTE assigned in various locations.
Not, you're saying not move from the school from one year to the other, actually
We've got a
during the
teacher
day.
who's teaching .8 at one building, .2 in another. And it's one person, but assigned to two different sites, so those salaries are, you'll see those divided up.
So their salaries are literally in the different lines per building.
Yes.
Yeah, yep.
I think it may be better in this particular account just to look at our total, because
Yeah.
our total looks in line to what our contract is, which is on page 13, instead of probably trying to, look at, oh,
Right.
this one is up, this one is down.
which is a 2.3.
Right.
The only question I had on this was
Yes.
the last column where it says 2021 department. The last two columns are actually flipped, right? Because the 2021 department came in, and then the superintendent made his adjustments.
Yes.
So what's the $267,000 difference at the bottom, on the bottom of page 13, between those two? Like, how could you bring teachers in on a contract with certain dollar amounts and then reduce it, have the superintendent reduce it by that much money?
So Frank, what he's talking about, see the bottom of the page 13?
Yep. There
Departments.
were,
Yep.
I thought we gave the board the cut list of the changes between your budget.
Yeah, it's
between
in the
part-
book
we
with
spelled
the,
that all out, what we gave the board
In what book
previously.
is that?
it's
The,
in the,
cut
The
list.
very first one,
it's the book with the supporting documents.
budget resources?
Yeah, budget resources, exactly.
It's in tab 2.
Tab 2, thank you, yep.
Oh, so the 267,418, that's what I was just saying. So those were, so is that part of what Donna was just talking about? Like the adjustments to, like, things were not budgeted correctly last year, and so you made adjustments to the salary tables, which brought it to the correct dollar amounts?
The department, there's several factors involved here, Nick. The big swing between the department level and the superintendent's level on page 13. When we first put this in, at the department head level, we found we had to make adjustments in the Munis system to correct, get the right numbers in. And so we corrected that in the superintendent's level. We made adjustments for that. And then we made other adjustments for retirees. The superintendent went through a detailed list of all of the staff and who was going to be retiring, and he individually estimated what he would have to hire at. But these are some of your retirees, your 4 retirees that are going out, we've talked about, and that they're hired at a lower level.
Yeah,
So
no,
that-
so when the department head submitted a budget, between that and the superintendent presenting his budget, you became aware of more retirements, and you were able to make adjustments when you presented.
The only one that's not in here is the one retirement that was on the board agenda tonight. So that'll be
Right.
another adjustment to be made, not reflected here
My
yet.
point, my subtext, I'm not making it clear. This is not, there's no cutting of staff here.
No.
This 260, this
Right.
minus 267 is basically clerical adjustments from when the department heads made their submissions.
Correct.
Time elapsed,
Correct.
and then you
Yep.
figured out corrections, and that's the cut.
There were no cuts. There's only one position cut in the entire budget. No teachers were cut. There's only
Right.
one single position cut in the entire budget, and that's under the custodial
Right.
position.
I'm just, when you look at tab 2 and you see amount cut and you see teachers regular ed it can look like, oh my gosh, they're cutting teachers
Right.
at 267. And I just want to make sure it's clear that this budget does not do that.
Right.
You're
and
absolutely correct.
Right.
Right, so what is the actual breakdown of the 267? Jack, so how much of that portion is retirements and hiring at a lower salary?
We have 4 positions that would offset that.
Right, so how much does that account for, Jack?
I don't know off the top of my head.
We'll have to go through and calculate. We can pull those out for you.
I can tell you the 4 positions that were calculated, 2 world language, we had to put in at a higher rate because we're going to be
Right,
harder
so you're
to
not
hire.
really saving anything
Right.
there.
And then the 2 elementary ed were more significant savings, larger offset.
Right, but so what's the difference? Because those two do not account for 267.
We'll have to calculate what those numbers are for you. We'll go into detail and pull it out. We have all the detail.
Yeah,
And that 267 is going to change again because the retirement.
The new
hit tonight.
retirement,
right, but
correct.
it's not gonna change that significantly.
But it won't be that exact number. When we look at it again, it'll be different.
Correct,
Correct,
but we
correct.
need to know what accounts for that. So we need to know what portion is the retirement and what is the rest, and why that's affecting, because it's not staff, the staff number is staying the same, so what is that? Does anybody have any more questions before we move on? All right. All right, so the next one up is the This is the certified staff special ed. And this one is an overall decrease. And can you walk us through what that is for?
Frank, could you walk us through that page?
Yeah, I'm looking at the 114s, the 1114. Let's see where,
Can I just jump in for a
Yeah.
second? On tab 2, the 1114s, 1115s, 1116s all have adjustments made, and they all have the comment of salary table adjustments.
Right, and the
Yeah.
first words in it are no cut, to make that clear to your point before, Nick.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's another reason that was not in the line above. In the 267 in the teacher's reg ed, there no cut is not in that comment,
Right,
which is
which it
another
should
reason
be.
why I wanted to say
Yeah,
that.
it should be, good point.
So what is this for? Why are we having an adjustment?
it's based on who actually, and what their actual salary is. We compare each person individually.
So does that mean
Sometimes
that,
it didn't line up with the budget.
so we have, so does this mean that last year was incorrect?
There are a few cases where, the position may not have been entered incorrectly.
With regard to the 2020 budget?
The 1920 budget.
Right. Right, the 1920, the current year budget that we're in now. So Jack, was last year when this budget was done, was it not done like this per person and entered like that?
The number of cross-checks last year were not the same as what we did this year. It was done more in isolation, and this year we've had numerous staff do cross-checks of the entries and physically a person-by-person count. So the process, yes, was different this year.
Right, so no, you didn't do that last year.
The cross-checks were not a part of it last year. It was done more in isolation by, within finance. Yes.
We try to approach it like a zero-based budgeting, where you start from basically zero and then you plug in everyone that's in the position and what is their actual salary. And so that you're not just adding to what numbers in the budget, you actually go one person by one person to put the numbers in, so.
And that's how you,
I have confidence in next year's budget. I didn't
'Cause that's how
assemble
you
current
did it.
year, so I can't
right,
speak
so
to it.
that's how you did it person by person.
It was done by our payroll department, going through, each person, cross-checking it into Munis to make sure that the right step, and then working with the HR department, advancing the salaries based on the recently ratified contract by the board, making sure each person moved up the proper step, so that each person got advanced a step in gross wage increase, so that each of these were going through, they were looked at by multiple people on the office. And so I'm confident of the numbers in next year's budget. As I say, I did not assemble your current year's budget.
No,
Finding
certainly.
things in it, but I did not assemble it.
Right. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that cross-check and that budgeting process and the review last year was not done the same way and to the same detail.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Anybody have any other questions?
I
David?
think an example of that, again, I'm looking at the Munis report for current year, that I got from Town Hall for 12/9.
Yep,
On one of the elementary schools, there's several lines for all the schools, and the line is teachers certified S, and like with encumbrances, it's 130%, 113% used, so it's minus 34,523. That's for second grade. Third grade is minus 106,876. There's another teacher certified S, minus 6,000, minus 5,000. There's numerous line items in here. Kindergarten, minus 54,000. That's current year budget.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have to be in better shape for next year. This is the current year. It's just 133, 106,000, 110,000. These are all teacher certified S lines in our current budget. I don't know why we're encumberancing over the line item. For example, development reading, teacher certified S, minus 110,552. It's 135% used. So something's going on where, you know, we budgeted X and we're over that, well over it, and that's repeated in our budget right now.
And that was
I went
the, I'm
through it.
sorry, that's the budget you sent me. What year was it again?
This year's budget, yeah, and I got it from Town Hall on 12/9.
Okay.
But there's many line items, so if that's the gist of what you're saying, as far as we went through and we did more double checks, then hopefully that'll solve it, because this year's budget, there's numerous lines where we're over 100% already on numerous lines. And it could be that a teacher's out or something like that, but you know.
Should be every single line.
Right.
Dave, you're correct in it. That's why you almost have to look at the total for each line item
At the end.
and at the end, and they're fairly close. And you have the totals by each line item. They're up 2%, 2.2, 2.3. What we found was the numbers generally are there, but they weren't necessarily in the right specific school that they should have been. But your bottom line was fairly close.
Yeah.
So this year it was a much more laborious process going through each individual and trying to assign them to the proper place. And you'll see more as you go along. We'll show you a few other areas where it illustrates what I'm talking about.
And Jack and Frank, I'm not trying to nitpick, and
Sure.
I don't want you to reprint this with all these pages, but if you look at page number 14, guys, we're still referring to Chalk Hill all over the book,
Mm-hmm.
Well, that
all
was,
over the book.
Right. That's a problem.
Yeah,
Current year
Linda,
and next year, yeah. Chalk
yeah,
Hill
Linda
is-
and I were talking about
Yeah.
this. She's removed them, but,
Oh, it's not her fault.
no,
it's just that-
it's not about fault.
They're all inactive, but for some reason this printed them inactive. So all
Gotcha.
Chalk Hill accounts were inactivated, the ones that we could inactivate.
Awesome.
It's just, for some reason.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, and Linda tried several times to eliminate them because they were inactive, and when we finally went into the budget module of print them, they kept getting printed. But you'll see the zeros.
I
the
do now.
zeros.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Should we move on?
Yeah, we're looking at page 16.
Yeah.
That social worker line, minus 100%.
Yep. Why is it a 0 in the superintendent budget?
It was 60,000, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a lane correction, Frank?
It's
No.
that's an
no.
elimination of the
Not
whole
on
position.
not on the social work. That was the adjustment of what account was going to be going in. And let's see. If you look down the bottom of the page,
Yeah,
you
last
see the
line.
social worker, 55,720, and that's what happened when we went through, and in this case here, it was in two places, so we eliminated one place. That's one of the changes between the department head level and the superintendent's level.
Right, but it's counted in both department head. It's counted in both on both lines for the departmental budget.
Right, and if you look at the bottom of the page, you'll see it's the superintendent, his approval is the 55,720.
So
And we took it out of the upper level.
So I guess what I'm asking is, then in the departmental budget, it was counted, somebody put it in twice.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when we went through then, the department head level, we made adjustments for it.
Okay, so shouldn't then the okay, I guess. So are we just moving the person completely because the original budget, the actual, the revised budget is all in one line, and now we're moving the person to a different line?
The bottom line, the 55,720, is where the person is in the Munis system.
All right,
And SW is system-wide?
I'm sorry, Nick, what?
Correct.
SW is system-wide?
I think the problem was it was in as a special ed. It wasn't a special ed person. She
Okay.
works guidance. That's why it was switched.
so
from
then
there.
I ask, should we then move the revised budget and do a line item transfer so that they line up properly?
In the current year,
Well,
Yeah.
right, our current year budget has got it in a totally different line.
right?
You know, do we
Oh, I see what you're saying.
adjust it and remove the $60,000 down to where it should go?
No. In the current year's budget?
Mm-hmm.
No.
In the revised
No.
budget.
No. You'll pick up, the actual expenditures will hit the account it's supposed to hit. And then once you get through this fiscal year, your expenditures will be hitting where they're supposed to be hitting. But if you start going in trying to adjust all these items here,
I'm not saying adjust all of them, I'm just saying adjust the social worker because we have the revised budget has it on a totally different line to match up, to be correct. The Munis system doesn't change, the expenditure doesn't change. All we're doing a line item transfers between on the revised budget from one line to the other.
The expenditure is going to be hitting the 1115 account. It
Right.
makes a difference what subline item it's going to hit.
Right, that we're not changing. What I'm saying is that you move the other one, the revised budget one for 2020 down to that line so that the current year budget matches up to the actuals that we've
If you're going to
spending.
start then, you're going to have a whole host of these you're going to be going down. And it doesn't make any difference because your control is at the bottom line of the object code. And you're going to find a lot of these where the subline item has a number in it that doesn't fit the expenditures. You'll come across several like that.
Okay,
So, and again, your control is at the bottom line of the object.
So the
So you-
71115 account is correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, you'll find items budgeted and there's no expenditures against them, but they're, in the proposed budget, they're hitting the accounts they should be hitting and the location they're supposed to be hitting.
Jack, question
Yep.
on the social worker. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we shared that with the town.
We do.
So the line item, does that reference any sharing, or is it the
This-
salary coming entirely?
My
out of
understanding is this is our .8 portion of that 1.0.
Yeah, that's what it says up top. Probably should say it down below, but it says it up there in the first one. Move salary already in budget FT .8.
Right. So the other .2 will live in the town's budget.
Yes.
how is the person being paid? She's gotta be paid on our budget.
Correct.
Yeah, and then reimbursement with the town. We had a long conversation with the town on how we're going to do, whose employee is it? And we worked it out with the town's finance director.
Right. And they basically
It's our
transfer monies
employee.
over to here, so
Yeah.
full pay is from us.
All right, so we will move on to the psychologist account. And this one as a total is going up significantly. Why? I mean, it's,
You have 2% increases and 2 negatives.
and the one thing I gotta say that I don't like about this report, these munis reports, all it is giving a, you know, the percentage change. What is the percentage change based on the 2020 revised budget compared to the 21 superintendent budget?
Calculated.
Is that what the change is based on?
Change is based on the superintendent's budget to the adopted Board of Education budget. It's budget to budget, and that's the percent then calculated at the superintendent's level.
Okay. Because like, if I'm looking at it based on the 2019 actuals, which I wish it would have something there, I mean, this is going up $100,000, this account.
From 19 to
Right.
21 superintendent budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The budget.
that's significant, and that's where I'd like to see the percentage increase.
On page 17,
Mm-hmm.
it's going up $55,000.
To the 2020 budget, but to the 1920 actuals, to the superintendent's budget is going up $103,661.
The 19
Right.
actual is the 18-19 budget,
In
right?
1819, right?
1819
Right,
budget, yeah.
one of
So
the
that's
factors.
Part of the
We
story
had a
here
lot of
too is,
absences.
part of the story here is we were down a psychologist
Correct.
at Monroe last.
Yeah, you can
Right.
see it. I mean,
Right.
And we hired.
We were
him this
down a
year.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jackie Hollow. So.
yeah,
At Jockey Hollow?
yeah.
Okay.
So
But
that's
that's still-
that's replacing a position.
Right, but even
Correct,
if I
no
look
addition.
at, so then why are we, okay, so we're down one, so then to the 2020 budget, to the 21 budget, it's still almost a $60,000 increase. Thank you, Kay, you have an answer, come on down.
I don't know if I have the answer, but we, previously at Monroe, it was a counselor,
Mm-hmm,
and then we changed that to be a psychologist. So it may look like an increase in the psych line, but it's not an increase overall necessarily, because it's just a counselor was taken out and the psychologist was put back in.
Mm.
So
Oh,
it's
cool.
a title change, but person, I mean, it's a different person, but it's a different title. So I don't know if that then went into a psych line as opposed to a counselor.
okay. And was that person budgeted as such in 2020 or no?
There should have been someone budgeted in this current school year, but she would have been budgeted under her title, would have been counselor, not psychologist. We changed the psychologist at the end of the year to
Yeah.
be a psych, we changed the position to be a psych position at the end of the
Okay.
last year.
So where would that be put, where would that have been put in the budget,
That would be under the counselor line.
which is account?
It's probably
The page before.
Okay. It's, okay, so it's called guidance then?
It was.
Okay.
And now that person was cut and the position became a psych position because a psychologist was needed to fill the position.
Okay, so I'm assuming that's the 63,085 that we see there, that has a zero in the current budget, but a budgeted amount for 21-21. And if I take that, 114, 60, minus 65. Okay, that would make sense, because that's about a $50,000 change from one object code to the other.
You moved it from page 16 to 17.
Yeah.
pretty
Right.
much.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
All right, then I guess we'll move on to page 18. George, did you get a printout of where we are current? Okay, good. Go ahead, Nick, go ahead. It's a workshop, so go ahead and just talk.
Great. Just want to note on the Q&A that I asked about this line specifically because of this object code, I should say. And so there is a little bit of explanation, or there's a little bit of narrative in the third question down on page 1. Talks about this object code 751129. So it seems as though this is one of the places that Frank was talking about previously that was incorrectly budgeted in the current year. So the increase this year is somewhat artificial.
Correction.
Right.
In the,
Yes,
I
if
shouldn't say
you-
in the line, in the object code, at the end of 751129.
If you look at, on page 23, which is the bottom line of the 1129,
Right.
last year you spent $1.4 million, 1,436,000. Your current budget is only 1,376,000. So your current budget is under budgeted. So for next year, we had to adjust both for the current year plus the increase for next year, so you have a 2-year bang. And that's why that bottom line of the age is up 13.3% because of it's under budget in the current year.
Is it possible that some of that under budgeting is somewhere else? And if the answer is no, then I think that this is a perfect example when, as the Board of Ed budget moves forward, when people see that 5.7%, this is not an increase in staff. This is a correction. So this would be part of that 5.7% that I've been calling an accounting increase. It's not an actual increase.
Correct. Well, a good amount of it is not
Right. Right, there are contractual increases.
Right.
But this is like the crux of what's so frustrating for me in the seeing that 5.7 and trying to explain that some of it is not a real actual increase. It's an accounting, we're righting the ship, it's an accounting
Right,
adjustment.
because quite honestly, these were not properly reviewed last year during, it,
Correct.
before it was presented.
That's all.
And your bottom line on your summary that we provided the board, your bottom line of all your salary accounts is 1.2% the bottom line. But you see these quirky things that we're pointing out, some up, some are down.
But my point is that even though it's 1.2% at the bottom, if it was done correct last year, then maybe it could be 0.5 this year, or minus point something. I don't want to get crazy.
I hear you, It,
Yeah. But
Your
that,
point's well
but I
taken,
think that's
yes.
the part of the big story of this budget, is a lot of it is accounting adjustments, and now we're doing the right thing.
Do we have a summary of all of those, the ones that fit into that category?
Jack, do we have a summary of those that fit into that category?
In terms of changes,
a summary
main
of,
changes with
These
salaries.
corrections that
Just to
needs
correct, I think it would be helpful to
Yes.
certainly present to the public, explaining here is a portion that is a correction overall.
Accounting
as a part,
correction.
There is-
separate from the budget. This is a
Right.
true increase, this is a accounting correction moving forward. We're eating it this year.
as we work with your budget, we're becoming more knowledgeable.
I understand, I mean, it's a-
With it, and that affects our projections then going into June 30th for the current year. to
I
see
think
where
it would
we
be really helpful to have that broken out. If you can write that down, Jack, we
Sure.
need to have a breakout as to what the true increase is for the budget, and then separate what the correction increase is, both as a dollar and a percentage for both, so that we can present, had the budget have been correct last year for the current year budget, our increase would have only been X, which could be 2.1% for all we know. But we need to know exactly what the increase would have been had this been correct and we didn't have all these accounting changes that are
And the,
affecting it.
We'll take a look at that. Your big change, of course, is your medical. And that's what's driving your
Correct.
entire budget.
Correct, but we should have that separated out so it could be easily understood as opposed to the way it is, as it's correct in the 5.7 by having it broken out separately, people can see, hey, this is because of this error that was made last year. Here's what the true increase is had it have been correct.
I think what we're trying to say, Frank, is after it leaves our hands, the scrutiny you're gonna get is much more than what we're giving you.
Yes,
So when they see the 117, they're gonna look at you and say, Frank, what the heck is happening?
Yeah, you're gonna need that for, to.
I think we're trying to just give you a heads up of
All
what's to
Right.
legitimate
come.
questions, yeah.
And quite honestly, Frank's not gonna be here when that
Right,
happens.
so it will be us, yeah.
Well, it'll be
Yeah,
Jack.
Jack, yeah.
In order to present to Board of Finance, Town Council, and to the public, right, we're gonna need to explain that clearly.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of the day, if our 5% continues to the referendum, the people, the voters and the people who are paying property taxes, I don't know if they're gonna care
They're
if
not.
2% of that was an accounting error, but it's, maybe it makes it more palatable.
Understood.
Understood.
Yeah.
Just so
Yeah.
people say, oh,
Digestible.
okay,
Mhm.
there it is.
Well, I mean, Frank made several notes on page 18. The budget, I'm sorry, 1920 budget did not count 3 professional days and 12 holidays per the contract.
Right, I saw that.
He wrote that several times, so that's 15 days' pay that weren't budgeted for times X amount of teachers. That's huge. That's huge money.
Yeah, I've already heard the comment, there's no way that a 5.7% increase is a zero-based budget. What are you guys, what are you inflating this year? So we need to really understand what's the actual increase.
Right, and not that that may change anything, but at least
Needs
there's
to be
a,
explained.
it
has
it
to be.
absolutely needs to be explained. So part of that narrative should be, for this particular account, 15 days were not budgeted for in this budget.
Yes.
Right, so at the end of page 23, we're showing a 13.3% increase. Somebody would look at that and think that's 13.3% raises that people are getting,
Right,
when
Oh, definitely.
10% of that might just be accounting corrections, right, or something like
I
that.
understand what you're saying, yes.
So we need to be able to explain that better. The under budgeting.
anybody have anything else in this account? All right, we will move on to page 24, which is the nurses. It looks like it's, and not that it's significant dollar-wise, but it looks like it's the summer for the nurses.
On that one, that's 31.9.
Yeah.
That's what it says underneath, and the bottom line is a 3.
Under budgeted, it says again.
Yes.
So is this the same thing, Frank?
The significant change here is the special ed system-wide during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one item that's jumping.
Right.
Kay, can you speak to that?
Yeah, we have to have a nurse at both buildings due to the kids that are involved in summer school. We used to have one nurse that went back and forth, but that's no longer feasible. We have to have one covered each building.
Okay. And so do we have 2 buildings going during
Two
summer?
buildings during summer school.
Okay,
We try to use air-conditioned rooms, so we use Jockey Hollow and Monroe L with preschool.
okay. So there's no possibility of combining them
Right.
because you would have preschool kids, just so that we have a full understanding.
Preschool has to stay where they are due to the toilets and everything.
Gotcha, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and then, it's grades 4 through 12 at Jockey Hollow, so it's hard to put the
Right.
high school kids at elementary.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. And we just asked this so that there's a clear understanding on the record, so people understand, well, why can't you combine them? And we need to, so people understand why.
That's a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Frank did make a note in here, yeah. 1920 under budgeted, increase the actual. Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. For custodians. And this is the one area that we are showing a staff reduction, correct?
Correct.
the only staff reduction of full-time employees. We cut summer hours, but only one position in this entire budget has been cut. And that shows up on page 25, at the very bottom. And that changed from the department head level to the superintendent's level.
Mm-hmm.
And then the details are on the bottom there, where we talk about the reduction and the savings and the salary.
Anybody have any further questions there? All right, we will move on to our security. And again, not that this is big dollar amounts, but it just yields a 7.6% increase. And there's some notes here. Can you give those to us?
Yeah, those were entered by Frank, the 1920 under budgeted, Frank.
Yeah, we took the actual people that are in the position, 3 security people and their salaries, and projected that out. And that's the number that we came to, the 116,601. And the guards. And I have a note there that we feel the current budget is under budgeted, 1920. If you look at the bottom of page 27, last year you spent $175,000. Your current budget's only $173,000.
Okay.
And the security non-certified at Massac, that obviously STEM is here, so that includes STEM, because there's a 0 under the STEM line.
It's always just been attributed to Massac because I think
It's
they're
just
always
the
they
building
always-
of
yeah,
Massac.
before STEM. So
They
probably
do
never
cover
changed.
both sites.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in other places you have it broken out, but I guess because we're in one physical location, it's just one line.
All right. Okay, substitutes. This one we're having a $30,000 increase.
On the substitutes?
Mm-hmm.
Decrease. Oh, wait.
What?
Uh,
Yeah, it goes from 246 to 216.
Yeah, if you look at your actuals, last year you spent $194,000, and we think, in this case here, it was over budgeted. Your actuals were $194,000 last year, and your budget's $247,000. It just seemed high to us.
Mm-hmm.
In this case here, it went the other way.
Okay. But nothing's changing here.
No changes, nope.
No, what do you call it? No hourly rate change, daily rate, or whatever it is changed.
No,
Frank,
all remains the same.
did you use, on some of the other lines, you're using 3-year averages? Is this one of the places where you used a 3-year average? Or did you just take it off of the last budget year?
In this case here, we looked at your actual expenditures for last year.
Which, Nick, just so you
Yeah,
know,
some-
last year, we actually had a rate increase for the substitutes. So that makes that year a little bit better of a reference compared to the preceding.
All right, let's move on to permanent subs. Again, this is a pretty large decrease. It looks like, again, the 2020 budget was well over budget from what the actuals were. Jack?
Correct? Correct.
Over budget.
And do we know why this was done this way?
I do not, no.
Anybody have any questions on this? Okay, we'll move on to page 32. That's just blank because we don't have that. 33, student support, unaffiliated. And if this swings the other way. We have a behavioral tech on page 34.
Yeah,
Is that a new position, or is that?
No, you see under, on page 34, second line item from the bottom, actual expenditures of $26,793 and zero in the budget.
Yeah.
So again, we picked up the actual person and put them at the right level.
But where is that money? Is that person is that person here this year, this budgeted year?
Yes.
So where is that person getting paid from if this is zero?
I'd have to look and see what account it's hitting. It'll be hitting one of the 1210 accounts,
Oh, so
but it'll be an expenditure without an appropriation.
Right, because that, that's going up that whole 47,000.
right,
So that looks like we're adding a staff person,
right. But it's just somewhere else this year.
but we need to know where that somewhere else is.
And that was a new ad, Kane, Darlene, was that a new ad, that position for programming? The behavior tech?
One was added, but not until recently. Probably December it was added, so I'm not sure who that is. So I don't know the answer. One was added, but not till December, so I think it's after this was developed.
So one was added last year.
No, just in December.
Yeah, just recently.
December one was added.
Oh, there's a new one added, but this is not this one.
I don't know, I don't do, I'd have to ask who the person is, not what that was.
Okay, so we need to follow up and finding out what that is. And if it is somewhere else, we need to know where that offset is.
yeah, because it sounds like we have a position,
Right,
but we didn't put that position in the 2020,
budget.
and then it was caught and corrected,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's another $27,000 clerical error,
Right,
accounting error.
Well, yes and no. They have to be somewhere. I mean,
Right.
they're getting paid. Yeah,
but we need to know exactly where.
yeah.
Because it might be a duplicate,
Mm-hmm.
right? If it's in another line, it could be a
Right.
duplicate.
It's probably hitting in the 1210 account. It could be hitting a line item where there's no money, it's just showing an expenditure on that, but we'll take a look at that.
All right. We'll move on. Summer school got taken out. So we'll move on to other male lifeguards. And what is
Male.
male? Male as in,
U.S. mail
Yeah,
or
so-
M-A-L-E?
Right, that's actually,
yeah, well, I don't know.
Is that,
that's actually the person who carries the mail.
Female.
Yeah, that's the individual who actually carries the mail between the buildings. That's our inter-office mail. It's a retired
Okay,
individual who's
okay.
paid to do that.
a courier?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, we actually pay somebody to bring mail between buildings?
We've been doing that forever.
Forever.
Every school system does that.
Every system has somebody
Really?
drop off.
See,
the-
I'm sorry, that would fall under my non-essential.
Who would do it?
Yeah, how would you get the mail to the
I mean,
buildings?
but why would you pay somebody to do that? If somebody's coming back and forth through different buildings, there's gotta be people moving around to get into departmental mail.
I don't know.
Most districts have some form of inter-building courier that goes around. It's fairly essential, and that round is made every single day. And you can count on that, and that's.
I mean, that is the one thing I'll say, like, if I had to get something up to central office at noon, and I signed it at 9, and I left it in the office, at noon the superintendent called me and had it. So that's the
Right,
only,
but why are we, and this I think goes to a bigger picture, why are we pushing paper around and not doing things electronically?
some things you have to sign, Donnie, you know that. Even electronically, some state forms I can't
Oh,
electronically
I
sign.
totally understand that, but I mean, that's, to pay somebody that much of a salary to just push inter-office stuff around, that just, to me, if I'm sitting here looking at a budget that we need to cut, that would fall under non-essential to me. If I have to, you know what, if it comes down to staff and staff in front of children teaching and somebody pushing inter-office mail around, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, one of the challenges in that is you do have a number of legal documents, IEPs going between buildings, and that's not something you want to leave to chance. It's a paper process.
Test protocols between
Right.
buildings, and, yeah.
No more, it doesn't go that way?
Right, so you don't even have that going.
Okay.
We got things like test protocols.
I
being
understand
passed
that, but
around.
I don't know if we need to pay a salary to do that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is this, this number in here, does the person who does this job in district, is the person on a schedule
Excuse me,
every
I need
day?
to run out.
Or is it as needed?
No, it's
No,
every day.
it's every single day.
It's
Job.
every day.
Every
It's a
single day.
permanent job.
Going back and forth to all
Yeah,
the buildings.
and you can count on her.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
On
There's
call?
gotta be efficiencies to that.
It's not on call, it's every day.
Right. It's every day.
Same
that we're open.
hours, I mean,
Yeah.
There's gotta be an efficiency to that.
My only question is, this seems like Donna's gone now, but this seems like a low, I mean,
No, it is. I mean, I get
They're
what
not
she's
paying.
saying though. She's coming out like, when you're looking at, is there efficiencies to that process now that a lot more is electronic? That you don't need somebody every single day to do that, possibly.
well, to Jerry's point though, I mean, sometimes if you have like a
Right,
state
but-
mandate that says it
I
needs to
just
be
know with the
running-
amount of
Right,
work
but
that
how
we
often
do.
is that?
Well, when you look at the high school robotics, here, I'll shoot a program at you. I can imagine with the 503B stuff that he's going through, that they go through, I can imagine there's a lot of correspondence every day that has to go back and forth, be shipped and signed. See, I can't send forms up to Hartford unless central office actually signs off on them. Now, I can call up the superintendent and say I'm mailing up a form, explain it to him or her on the phone, but they have to, there's no rubber stamp on that. They have to hard sign that stuff.
There's electronic
Yeah.
document signing too. I don't
There
know
is.
if we've
Right.
looked at
Yeah.
Adobe.
I'm
Yeah.
just thinking
Sign.
there's
Yeah.
gotta be
There
efficiencies that we can
Right.
look at, that maybe you don't need somebody.
There's
Or
every
DocuSigns,
leverage
single
an
there's
day.
all
existing
kinds of
resource
stuff.
that goes
Right,
between,
that's what I'm
if
trying to say.
facilities goes
Yeah.
back and forth between
Right.
buildings.
Exactly.
I'd rather give somebody a $2,500 a year stipend or a
Yeah, that's what I was
$4,000
thinking
stipend.
too.
and
Right.
I don't know, maybe we put this on our list for,
For possible ones to discuss, and then we could look into are there efficiencies with it. We can
Yeah.
get you answers on it.
I think that this is, quite honestly, in my opinion, this is something that needs to be seriously looked at and figured out, and a different way to do business with this. All right, we'll move on to tech, custodial technical tech summer work.
This is one of the places where we did make cuts, and we do get a lot of bang for the buck on this. These are high school students we hire to come in and help out with custodians and IT over the summer to get the buildings torn down and cleaned up and put back together. But in terms of trying to find some savings, this was one of the places that we made a change.
So these are our custodians that were reducing their work.
This is students in the summer help, and sometimes usually it's students that work,
Students.
work with
Correct.
the custodial crew and the IT crew.
Okay.
and that could possibly be cut even more, right? In theory?
Problem is, if we cut it more, you start to wonder, are we gonna get it done? We're gonna have to be creative even with this in terms of how to get everything done over the summer.
You're talking about stripping all the floors, you're talking about painting
labor,
all the
yeah.
walls.
Mhm.
I hate to say it, guys, you can robot and DocuSign all you want, no one's gonna wax a floor on a DocuSign. So, there's certain things that we gotta look at here that we have to be serious about. And one is, when your kids go into a building in August, you want it clean. You don't want gum under the desk from last year. So, yeah, I'm getting a little serious here because I know these guys firsthand, and for 35 years, they ripped my room apart to stud and they rebuilt it and made sure it was ready when the kids walked in again. And by the way, you should be asking how many teachers give of their time all summer to come in 80, 90, 100 hours over the summer to rip their rooms apart and put them back together again. You don't see that here. And you won't see it here.
And it is a lot for the money. There are minimum wage positions, so for the investment, there's a significant amount of
Well,
return.
I'm sorry that I got, but boy, you're asking a lot now of your crew to,
Well, my next question was gonna be, how much could the custodians absorb if we keep cutting this, or the current cut?
I mean, how can I nicely
Could they
put it?
absorb a
This is your
44%?
youth and your strength, and I'm not picking on our custodians with age, but this is your youth and your strength. These are your high school kids who come in and they don't mind.
And we just have to keep in mind, the other thing we've done is the one place where we've eliminated staff is a full-time custodial position, and then we've cut this significantly as well. So in terms of asking that group to do more, that's.
That's what, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't wanna push it, but
Right,
it is difficult times.
it is.
Right,
It really is, Dave. That's the bottom
That's the
line.
problem.
That's the bottom line.
right. And we may have to make, and I
You may
don't
have to
know
make
if we
more
will, but we may need to make very difficult decisions.
Well, go back to what you said. If it's a student or staff or a clean room, I agree with you. I'd rather keep the students and the staff not affected. So you are correct in
Right.
that.
Right, and again, I think that we're gonna just, as we're doing this, we need to go through everything with a fine tooth comb, because when it comes down to it, if there is, cuts that we need to make, which are hard decisions, we need to be fully informed and educated on all these items to be able to make a very, conscious decision and strategic decision on how we're gonna do these cuts.
And this is the.
If we have to do
This is
these.
the conversation that we should have been having all along.
It is.
And get the pros and the cons of everything
It
Right.
and,
is.
and
And be fully
Debate it.
informed. Right.
I think the other problem with cuts is that, to Jerry's point, is once it's cut and you go to next year's budget and you put it back,
hard to get back.
yeah,
Well,
now it's an
I've-
increase.
I've been
Right.
saying for 62 years, once Monroe cuts it, it doesn't come back. And I know that's in rock and stone. I didn't mean it, but once we cut, it is almost
Right.
impossible
Well,
to.
that's on the record now, Jerry.
I don't care. Hey, record. But that is very true, though.
No, it
That's-
is, but unfortunately, we may just not have an option.
Agreed.
so-
I agree, no, I agree.
Agreed.
All right, we will move on to stipends.
Jack, where you have the percent change is 100 on some of these, were these just programs don't exist anymore? or
Well,
what?
these are, you'll see with these is, this is another one of these places where you'll see the superintendent's cuts. So you
Yep.
see how 2021
5,000 to
department,
0, yeah,
right, so
yeah.
we're getting into those now where these were changes that I made in discussion with Frank as, because we had to make we had to make changes. There were places we had to go. Now, what this refers to, we don't like the title of this. It's called stipend differentiated instruction. This is not in-school staff. So I want to make that very clear. These are volunteers hired from outside to come in at the elementary level and to provide some one-on-one read aloud time with students and support to students. So in talking with the elementary principals, in the grand scheme, this was a place where we felt we could make some cuts and have minimal impact on students.
So these aren't stipends to our certified staff?
No,
Okay.
no, these are outside individuals that come in.
What did they do?
Becky, you want to give a little detail on these?
Yeah, so, individuals come in, two at Mount Hollow come in.
Becky, can you come in, because nobody at home is gonna hear what you're saying.
I need a pass around mic.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or we have to mic you all up.
My voice too, which doesn't help too much. So Fawn Hollow, historically, that money has been used to pay a daily substitute rate to former teachers who come in and work with students in extension activities during WIN time. The language arts person will come in 1 day a week for 3 6-week sessions over the course of the year. I've had a former Monroe certified teacher come in and work with students in math, administering the noetic math test twice a year with follow-up sessions, maybe 5 or so, one time a week before the second test in April. So it does provide extension to those students who benefit from that.
Every school does this?
The three
They
elementaries.
kind of do it, yeah.
You
So
pay
these
these
are really-
people, and these people are paid to come in and read to kids and do math with them, and, I mean, how does that,
Well, I mean, at Stepney, they work with small groups of students and.
doesn't a reading consultant do that?
And some are not as small as others, but examples of things that they do, sometimes they tie them into to the curriculum. So when fourth grade students are learning about Native Americans, then this person might do storytelling and teach the students how to do storytelling. It builds on what they're doing in the classroom for the language arts.
But to answer to your
Other-
question too, Alan, you know, yeah, our in-school staff.
No, I'm just lost, because, like, if kids need extra reading support, they might get, SRBI, they might get special education, maybe
Right.
they work with the reading
So,
consultant, I
right, to
don't,
get to that piece, the answer to your question is yes, our in-school staff are doing all those things. This is an extension
An
of that work.
extension. I mean, right. And it's not, it's, depending on what the topic is that the person might be working, it does provide more for those students that need more. In the noetic math at Fawn Hollow, when we would do that, we open that up to all students, and I think, you know, all 3 elementaries do the same thing, and anyone can take the noetic math test. And historically, we then, for those students who score really well on the noetic math test, which is in-depth problem solving, is what that consists of. It's really a rich math experience. We would have someone come in and work with students in deeper problem solving.
And where do we find these people?
They're both former staff members.
So they're all former staff members?
Yeah.
do other school
Former
systems
certified.
do this?
I don't know if other districts that do this. No, I don't.
But I think the superintendent is proposing that these stipends be removed.
Yeah.
Removed, right.
Yes.
In terms of the hard choices,
Right,
this is
this-
one of those places. You know, everything we look at, they're gonna be difficult cuts to make, but we're trying to find
Absolutely.
some that we can make to help the bottom line here.
If these former teachers
Yeah.
still want to come in as volunteers, they could
Right.
still come
Oh,
in
yeah.
to the school system.
Right, I think we're at a point where we need to
Yeah.
move this to a
No,
volunteer type program.
we totally support.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I don't
agree with
mean,
that.
we've had conversations about this, and the 3 of us support the elimination of these funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is gonna go volunteer from now out?
I would say volunteer.
Yeah, if we can find
Volunteer.
volunteers.
Sure, we can ask.
Yeah.
So I think we can then remove some more money in this. Except for maybe the team leaders, that's something different, right, at Jockey Hollow?
That's different.
Right. So that would probably have to stay.
Yeah, what you'll see here is at the top is, you'll see 3 $5,000 figures. Those are the 3 elementary schools.
Right.
As you go down the page, one's at the top, one's at the bottom, and one's a little higher than the middle there.
But then what are things like reading consultant, computer tech?
These are stipends from within the contract.
So then this is, wait, so you just said that this was not contractual stipends?
Right.
This account was separate, so, but now you're saying these are?
The ones that we just spoke of are not
1260,
contractual.
I think you've been talking about, the intervention tutors, is the line item I think you're just talking about. And as opposed to the line before, it, which is the 1250, which are stipends, which are contractual and which are allowed of your employees.
All right,
You'll
because,
see the athletics in there, you'll see a whole group of people, several pages of those stipends.
And you'll
So
see
there's
with
two separate
those,
line items here.
right, and you'll see with those, the 2% that reflect the contract.
okay. So this is not just non-certified stipends. This account really is stipends for contractual
The
obligations.
1250.
So it's all stipends.
Right, it's all stipends. That was not understood, that was said differently at the beginning, or did I misunderstand?
No, I wrote down outside people who
Right.
come in. No.
Yeah, for these, for those three that Becky just
Right.
shared about, those three positions are not
Gotcha.
contractual. Those are outside individuals that are brought in.
Okay,
So we started discussing those, and those three are reflected in the $5,000 amounts. The next thing that we're discussing are the other stipends. Those other stipends, you're going to see contractual positions.
Anyone with a 2% increase is contractual.
Correct.
What would like the science consultant do?
These are stipended positions for elementary teachers, elementary principals. One of you want to share those positions, what they do? We're on page 39 is one of them?
38,
38?
38, 39.
And it's number.
Kind of midway down the page.
75125.
Stipend, science consultant, SE.
That's zeroed out.
That one's zeroed out.
right.
No, that is it.
Tech integrator is another one. I can speak to that. The tech integrators are teachers at each one of the buildings that assist with integration of technology at the building. I and Lisa Peterson will meet with them on a monthly basis, talk about various strategies to use. They'll go back to the buildings, meet with teachers on how to apply those strategies in the classroom.
On page 41, the first line item, it had a stipend in there for a music and art director system-wide. We've never had that budgeted. Why would we have had an amount in there for the 2020 budget?
I do not know.
Well, that doesn't mean that it didn't exist in the year before 20, it could have existed.
We've never had a position called music and art director system-wide.
There's a note here that says Da Vinci moved to SC stipend, PD in-house budget. So Frank, MFW, there's that, who moved that one from the note here, top of page 41?
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. Yeah, zero expenditures and budget was 3960 in our notes. Stipend arts and music system.
So was that moved to Da Vinci?
Well, the Da Vinci got cut.
Yeah, I know, for next year it has, but regarding the funds, well, actually, yeah, it was, so was that supposed to be Da Vinci, I guess is the question. But there's nothing actual 2019, so that doesn't make sense either.
No.
Right,
Yeah, so that was taken out.
but we budgeted for something in that.
And
And what would you have budgeted that last year, Jeff?
That doesn't make sense. Wouldn't be something we would budget for.
Is there a teacher that is in charge of the,
Da Vinci, yes. Stipend for art and music director, district-wide? No.
so there's a Da Vinci stipend somewhere else?
Yeah, although you'll see that that's one of the cuts that we have on the superintendent's list
Right,
for
right, right.
2021.
No, I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
It's not in there as a stipend, Barbara. Da Vinci is not a stipend. It'll fall in different other places.
Mm-hmm.
There's an art supplies line for Da Vinci, and then we have something called professional development in-house, and that's where I pay the teachers who attend on a Saturday, which is an agreement with the union. So they get a stipend for being on the Saturday, but it's not in as a stipend in the stipend section.
Thank you, Sheila, for clearing that up and letting us know that.
Got it.
That answer what you were starting to ask? Jack, on page 42,
Yep.
there's a couple corrections in there in the middle of the page. It said that that person doesn't get longevity or get the stipend. So my question is, I'm glad you caught that and took it out, but did we pay that in the past? Have we been paying something that we shouldn't have been paying?
Yeah,
There's no expenditure.
There's no actual.
Right, in
yeah.
No
2019.
expenditures on it, Dave.
Okay, yep.
yep.
But again, I guess this goes back to why did we have it budgeted for?
Which one?
See, there's nothing but we.
It's just part of the incorrect budgeting pattern from the current fiscal year.
I've gotta run, but if curriculum writing, reduction in new courses.
Mm-hmm. Which line is that?
She's on,
Page
43,
43,
the second one.
Yeah, second one
And
down.
that's my line for curriculum writing as new courses come. If it's a half year, it's could be 20 hours that a teacher will get for curriculum writing. If it's a full year, it'll be 40 hours that they'll do during the summer. And we've reduced the number of new courses coming forward. And also, it's not just new courses that are in here. We do have a normal cycle of curriculum writing that happens during the course of the summer. So those are still in there. It's just the new courses have been reduced, which is why I reduced the amount going forward.
So then, as you were, great, and then getting back to Da Vinci, is that, let's see, 1, 2, 3 line items down from that professional development in-house, is that,
Included in that is, but that's, there are many other things that fall in there too. We'll pay teachers for doing workshops. That's basically what our in-house professional development is. So if I have, parents will bring their students for Jockey Hollow before school starts with their technology to get everybody hooked up and online, make sure that your personal technology works, whether it's STEM or at Jockey Hollow, Maine. So we pay our teachers to do that technology workshop. That's included in there. We'll have workshops on election day where teachers are presenting to other teachers. So all of that's included in there as well.
so that 76, the superintendent made a $7,600 cut in that line. So that's gonna affect those types of things. Okay.
Wait a minute, which one are you on, Nick, right now? Which,
The professional development in-house system-wide,
Page 40.
Page 40.
Page 43, fifth line down.
the 5th line down. If I'm reading it correctly.
yeah, I do not see that on the superintendent's list. Am I right? As I look at that right now, I didn't. So Sheila, is that reflected in what you have as the 2909?
No, what I had was the department. I
Right,
still have my department now.
The 10500?
Yes. That's what I proposed when I met with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do not see it on the superintendent's cuts.
So then when we go to the page, it gives us the total, that does it still show up?
Well, Jack, in your tab 2, you have the account 1250 with that 23,541. I mean, you have to add up everything that's in this object code.
Yeah, that was elimination of the 15,000 for the differentiated instruction, and then the longevity items we were just talking about no longer applicable. That's what that amount is, that 23,541. But that does not include professional development. So, Frank, any thoughts on that one at all?
Well,
I mean, that's something we're gonna have to check on, yeah,
no,
because.
I think it does, because if you go to page 59,
Yep,
if you go to page 59 at the bottom of the page and you look at this object code, 250, and you take the 2021 department and subtract out the 2021 super, you get to 2353. The math professor can't make a mistake. Give me a second. 23,541. So if you, so it is there. The 2021 department, take away the 2021 superintendent on the bottom of page 59 does match the superintendent's tab 2 cut list.
Yeah,
So-
the thing that I wonder here is if there was an error between that and these longevities. And that's the other thing we need to go back and check. Because we were really careful about the comments as we were going through this to associate them with the things that were cut.
My only point
Yeah.
is it seems like your totals are matching.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, what I'm wondering is, in going through the longevity issues, if there was an error made with one of those not coming out and the PD coming out instead. And that's the thing I would like to go through and double check here.
Got it.
Hey, Jack, I think there's one of those on the middle of page
Yeah, I
44.
just saw, yeah, there's a few
$2,000.
of those.
1893.
Yep.
Where?
All right, so this is an item we'll go back and we'll look at. So the PD line there.
There's no actuals, but it was budgeted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a takeaway.
Yep, we'll take that away and come back to you with an answer on that.
Yeah, there was no expenditures on page 44, even though there was a budget current year.
Right, same thing, bottom of page 45. No expenditures, but 1,025 budgeted and taken out. It says correction moved to that other line item.
Just catching
We
up.
probably found the expenditure hitting that line item that we've identified in the bottom of page 45. Since there were no expenditures hitting that line item.
Yep.
See the zero, and there was a budget there.
But then it
And
looks
we
like it got
moved
moved
it
to
to where
the
it should be.
one on the top of page 46.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
That just got flipped.
Says correction
Yeah.
from.
Yep.
Yep, you see it there. The
Yep.
actual is 1,025, there's no budget.
Right, so those two
Those will net out.
flipped.
777.
Let me ask you one thing, I just, something just on me. Sheila, the Da Vinci, could that 7,000 in the PD line we're just looking at on page 43, could that be Da Vinci or no? The professional, no, that wouldn't be it. Professional development, in-house, that wouldn't make
No,
sense.
that's the
Okay,
in-house staff development.
okay, gotcha, all right,
No, art, that's under supplies.
gotcha, okay.
not stipends.
And all of these other stipends, the color guard, the theater, those are all contractual.
Correct.
And these stipends include all the 2%, so it assumes that the contract that the board passed would be enacted.
Correct.
Yeah, Nick, we negotiated, if it gets approved, 2% and then 0.0 for the 3-year contract. We did a 2-year now because they hadn't had an increase in 7 years in stipends,
But
if I remember correctly.
But even though the board approved it, it's still not,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
But it
If it
assumes-
goes into effect, right?
Yeah.
The overall line item for stipends is down 3.9%.
Right.
Is that mainly from cleanups? Yeah.
Exactly, David. Even though there was a 2% contractual increase, but was going through and see if it was actually being used.
Well, that's a good exercise. Where's the last page on
Where would you like to go next, George?
stipends?
So if we're, yeah, if there's no 2019 actual, why would we continue to budget for something?
What page you on, George?
48 at the bottom.
I'm at the bottom of page 48.
Mm-hmm.
I see 000 right across from it.
Yeah.
The next one up,
Yeah, stipend non-athletic, ACT
STEM.
STEM.
got 0 in 2019 and then 1,000.
Yeah, cases like that, if we found a person that was in that position for that item, we made sure there was money in that for that position.
Do we know what it is?
Stipend non-athletic, ACT STEM.
John here?
This is the bottom of page 48. Yeah, it's non-athletic.
I just want to understand conceptually why we would do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have found someone that we're paying, we just don't know what it's for.
Well, we're trying to figure that out right now. Jack and Lee are looking at the book.
The last person that is identified with is Heather Ross from 2017.
So that can get removed?
That can get removed. Yep.
We'll check on that.
Yeah, and we'll check in. Most likely it's going to be a remove here.
Unless there's accounting shifts, Frank, from one line item to another line item within the budget, unless there's a shift from one line item to another line item, like you're correcting our accounting principles, right? In terms of what line stuff gets assigned to. If you have an actual of 0 in any of these lines, shouldn't we take a second look at that and make sure that it's actually a needed thing to be budgeted for?
And they did.
Not just this one.
Yeah, we went
case.
through hundreds, literally hundreds of stipends, position and body and everything else, and then putting these numbers in. I'm really days spent on that. I hear you. We'll check on that.
If you could, I'm assuming you can run a report out of Munis that would say for 2019 actual of 0, give me all those records, and then you can see which ones are actually we're charging against, right? And maybe those come up for debate.
Yep.
They did eliminate about 100 zero lines across the whole budget.
Oh yeah, there's so many of them that we try to eliminate. Some keep coming back.
Yeah, I mean, if a line is not needed, that's one thing, right? If a line is being budgeted for and doesn't have an actual, then that's another thing that we need to look at.
And we can't eliminate it if it's had any history involved with it. Because if
Yeah.
you eliminate it, throws off your actuals then for prior fiscal years.
And I think like,
So it's got to be 0 going back quite a bit.
like on page 53, if you look at the third number down, this is getting to your point, you have a 0 actual in 19, but you're budgeting, it's boys soccer at Massac. I mean, that shouldn't have been 0 in 2019. That's clearly a line that existed in 2019.
Yes, yeah.
So,
It shouldn't be 0. You're right.
so like that's,
So where did that
where
stipend for
was
that
it?
person?
Well, we
Yeah.
try to identify it there, the head coach and the assistant coach.
That was an accounting error, where it was
Right.
soccer coaches. It was just coming out of a different account. Which account, I forget, but I think we traced in the history. Something between $9,
That brings up another point, right? Is that now a duplicate?
Right.
Because is that other account that it was getting funded out of still being funded for next year in addition to this
Right.
account? In addition to this line?
Well, in this current year, yeah. And this duplicate question came up again already on, I forget where, but somewhere before previously.
And John, you do have currently a soccer coach and 2 assistant coaches.
Yes.
Yep, and if you notice, there's nothing in the budget for it. No actuals last year.
Right, but to George's point, I think he's just saying in the current year, when the accounting correction was made, let's hope it was taken out of the other line where they were getting
zeroed
paid
out
from the
the other
19.
line, right.
So we're gonna check to see if there's a duplicate stipend athletic boys soccer.
Oh, I see, it's right on top. Sorry, no, that's boys, that's indoor track. Oh, it was labeled indoor track, but it was really soccer? Okay.
Oh.
You can see that right there.
All right, so that's the shift from the very top to the third line.
The very top of that page has 11.
It was charged off to that account,
Mhm.
and it
This is
should have
worse
been
than
down to
Sudoku,
the.
man.
Yeah. Again, when you work these accounts, you almost have to look at the bottom line of the total because of all this internal shifting that took place.
I 100% agree, but I still want to emphasize George's point about, which is a great one, about when things are corrected, there's 2 dimensions to the
corrections
correction.
that need to make, yes.
Pull it and put it in the right place. And if you don't pull it correctly, then you could be. It's not that the money's going out twice. It's just that it's budgeted twice. Your number at the bottom is bigger, and your increase is inflated.
Right.
Okay.
Jack, Frank, page 59.
Yep.
I would assume that's all contractual for the 2%, the 63.3 on the theater stipends.
We try to identify each of the people and positions with all the details underneath it.
No, I appreciate that, yes.
Yep.
So these would all be within the contract.
Right, that's how I started,
Right.
yes.
Yep.
Right.
So this is just another example of the current budget year was incorrect.
It had to have been.
It's not like these people were added, right?
No, these people are not, no. They've been there since I retired from there. No,
My
they
point is
haven't
we
been
didn't go
added.
from 2 play directors to 4.
Right, no, you're right. And that's what I don't, you see that, as you know, since you're on council, that's something town council and the Board of Finance would have a field day with, because they wouldn't look at Frank's explanation, they look at the 63.3.
Oh, for the record, the council doesn't look at the Board of Ed budget?
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Make sure that's on the record.
Wise guy.
Put the Board of Finance up, yeah. Okay.
So again, just to have an understanding of conceptually what we're doing here. I'm looking at page 56, and there's a
I'm sorry.
Page 56.
56.
There's a few examples where our 2019 actual exceeds our 2021 budget request. What would be, and yet we have a 2% salary increase. What would drive that? Why would we not fund what our actual is in the
Because,
current year is?
again, George, coming back to zero-based budgeting, we took the position, you see the detail underneath there, head coach, 3,514. Assistant coach, 2,715. These are the actual positions that are in there with the 2% increase in the pay code, which ties right into our MUNIS system. And we came up with a figure of 6,229 we need to fund those specific positions. So your actuals the prior year, they could be higher because stuff could have been charged off to them. It might have been charged to the wrong line item. But
Gotcha.
Right, so
we
for the ice hockey, it's 12,000, but we're only at 9. So you're saying there could be more other things were charged to that account?
Yes.
Which is crazy, because what else should you be charging to a stipend account
Right.
except a stipend?
Because it's a few of them. Cheer, was it cheer, hockey?
I guess we just have to say, good thing it's right now.
The, the budget was assembled with the detail that you see in it to show how we came to the numbers.
Yeah, that's perfect, right? I mean, it's easy to add up the head coach rate, the assistant coach rate, and the 2% increase, right? So that's good. The only question that people are gonna look at and have is, why is your actual in the current year this, and you're only budgeting for this next year? What was you know, what are you spending it on right now?
I mean, to Frank's point, what we're doing is locking it into the contract and keeping this whole thing clean and related to our obligations. The previous, we'd have to research and see what it was spent on.
Got it. I
Yeah.
just, I think you need to prepare those answers to those types of questions.
Okay.
The reverse would also be true, right? If you are seeing a uptick beyond the 2% in the 2021 request, we should have responses for those as well. I'm not seeing one right now, but so there's ones like on page 59, right? Yeah, you see a 63% increase, 122% increase.
It was just
So in those cases, I think we need to have responses prepared to say this is why this is going up that much.
And then also related to that, how, okay, it's going up that much, it occurred before, how was it paid in previous years?
Right.
Because it's always occurred, but it's been paid from somewhere, so how?
Right.
Because this is brand new.
Right, but I also want to make sure that we're not affecting, like when you jump to page 60 and you look at the second from the bottom, I appreciate that it was a 0.48% cut, but why?
That's a different, you're in a different object code.
Okay,
Oh, we're done with, you're done with stipends?
I was just moving, with my next page, if you have something else, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was,
Jerry, you're always ahead of us.
Are we okay on page 60 now? Is that where we are?
Yeah, I think you're not gonna. What I would advise is that I don't expect you're gonna have a question on every single one of these cases, but I think conceptually you need to explain why some are going up above the 2% increase and why some are showing an actual in 2019 that is higher than what we're requesting for
Right,
next
and
year.
have the examples on each.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Are we good on that one? We go to page 61.
no, I think Jerry had a question on the interventionist tutor.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
once again,
I have the
how
same
would you
question.
get from 33 to 16? So who was cut?
Which
But in
page, which page are you
2018,
on?
it's 17.
I'm on page 60.
The second line from the bottom on page
Yeah.
60, the actual charged off that account was $17,899 and $33,000 was budgeted.
Was budgeted and then revised, gotcha, okay.
Right,
Yep,
So that's an over budget.
That's an over
It's
budget.
an over, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Again, when you look at these line items, you almost have to look at the bottom line of the total because there's so much movement back and forth on it. Hopefully going forward, you're not gonna have this much deviation in your sub-line items.
So is the 33,000 like that's how much we're gonna spend?
No,
No,
that's how much it was put in the
just
budget.
the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
But we are in line to be like where we're at 16,
The
17.
16935.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
page 62, the database admin, that's shared with the town, correct?
These positions, I don't want to talk about the person resides here. But our IT staff are shared. But the interesting thing is, pretty sure this one's Lisa, I believe. If I'm thinking the right person, and so she's assigned here at Massac. But we pay for it, and it's, her duties are school, related to the school.
So this is entirely BOE?
Yep.
BOE staff and
Right.
BOE salary?
Right. Yeah, I'm quite sure that's Lisa Shishkin, so she's all ours, all database related to the schools. And actually, I take that back, that's Diane, who's, works with Lisa, again, 100% for the schools.
Because
Because it says data, I just saw the word, let's see, database admin student. Yeah, she's a new hire, so that would be Diane.
Okay. And when we get to, I'm assuming somewhere we're gonna get to some more IT stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You'll point out which ones are shared?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we on page 62? I mean, that one, that makes sense. Frank's comment.
About the new hire at lower
Yep.
rate?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
the one I was just,
Good. Top of page 63, is that another one of those corrections?
No history, no expenditure,
Just the budget sitting there.
Just,
no expenditure for several years, and you had a budget 27,323.
it would be interesting to note if you took all of those, how much money was there?
I
That's
just
over budgeted.
don't understand that.
And part of what they've found too is it's in both directions, right?
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
If we've
Under
found-
and over?
Both.
If you're over by, 5%, 10%, I can see if you're over, under. This,
Right,
if I may speak openly, is insane.
Absolutely.
yeah, especially 7 years, 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Right,
It should,
right. And correct me if I'm wrong too, Frank, I mean, this is not,
We've always done it that way.
this is not
What it
a
amounts to.
one
Yeah,
budgetary
well, doesn't
year
need to.
issue.
I've said a few weeks ago to this board, it's gonna take a couple of years to straighten a lot of your things out.
And the items we're seeing are not unique to a single budgetary year, I guess is what I'm. Yeah.
Jack, can I take you to page 64?
Absolutely.
Fund Hollow Secretary's line, 3 base salaries, we have an actual of 128,635, and then moving forward, it's 126, and, is that a cut there?
Office personnel, FH, 3 secretaries, for one hollow base salary, FC.
I mean, I
that-
know it's only a couple $1,000s, but if we're
It's a
under
down.
budgeting.
64, Gary, I'm sorry.
The one he's looking at, Frank, is the office personnel, FH. It says 3 secretaries, for one hollow base salary, FC.
We have an actual of 128, and then we're only budgeting moving forward 126.
Right. wouldn't
Looks
there
to
be
me
a
like
raise
that
in there?
was a
Yeah.
correction to, my assumption is that would be a correction to contract, Frank?
It'd be a correction and what the actual person is employed in that position, and what their actual salary is. So our personnel lady went through each person by name to see where their actual salaries are and made adjustments, and this looks like it's one of them.
But that's an adjustment in the current year budget. That went from 128,635 to 126,011 in the current year.
Yes.
Yeah.
That percent line column is very deceiving because like if you go down a little bit, secretary STEM base salary last year, I'm sorry, 2019, 358 to 374. and then it stays 374. It's telling you a 0, but that 0 is the superintendent to the, you know, it's all,
Yeah, and
it's
what-
all your cut. It's not last year to this year.
Well, I think what Frank was saying is budget to budget, so it was,
Right.
right.
Mhm.
So it's the 1920 to the 2021.
Yeah, all percentages are always budget to budget.
But those would be, if there were increases in those lines, those would be union-based. These are,
Should be
This is all
contractual
contractual.
purely.
Right.
Right, this is all contractual.
and that, I think Frank said at the beginning of the meeting, that contract is open,
The end of this year, we'd start negotiating.
right?
Jack, top of page 65, that
Mhm.
minus 12.3, is that a correction? I'm looking at the notes.
Office personnel, admin assistant to director of finance, grants, CO, base salary, FC.
Came down.
So that was Frank, that one was,
74.65.
yeah, office personnel, admin assistant to director of finance, grants, CO. So that would be the assistant to you, Frank,
Yes.
base salary.
65,772, yeah.
So that looks like it'd be correction 2, contracted salary.
But the actual in 19 was 74. So is that person taking a,
No, what happened, that person was covering 2 positions for an extended period of
Okay.
time.
I think somebody in the audience is trying to help us out with this one.
So Margaret then filled
Right.
in for Terry last
Right,
year,
right,
and then now it's bringing her back
Right.
down to her.
right. So she
Okay.
was covering 2 positions,
so getting a little more compensation because of
a
that?
lot of OT, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep,
Makes sense.
yep.
But aren't we gonna have overlap though,
65.
moving forward?
This was to cover another position outside of finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
We spent a while on stipends.
Jack, on 65 and 66, I just had a question. What does a special ed secretary do at an elementary school?
Okay, and Darlene, you want to speak to that, their duties?
They set up the PPT meetings, they do all the reports after the PPT meetings, and they bring mail.
Can't special ed teachers do that?
Not this case, they're gonna have
Really?
honestly.
It just seems like a lot of money to spend for someone to mail home IEPs and.
I don't think that's their only job, but that's what their special ed role is.
But what would, I'm sorry, Kate, what would they do when they're not mailing IEPs or setting?
That's the principal, I don't know, I'm not in their buildings.
Well, I'll say, at Long Hollow, it's a .5 position, it's .5 special ed, I think, and .5 regular ed. And it is a really busy job, because they're also right there in the main office area. So in addition to doing what Kay is talking about, and they also do, at least at Long Hollow, and she also helps the guidance counselor with setting up all the 504 meetings and any other meetings that the guidance counselor would need to have. They're answering the door, they're answering the telephones, because it's a really busy office. I mean, honestly, Long Hollow's office is understaffed, I think. But, and, you know, doing all the paperwork that Kay spoke about. Jill spends hours on the phone coordinating with families, PPT meetings. And then we have a snow day, and we could have 5 meetings that all need to be rescheduled for another day. All of that takes a lot of time. And to that,
She's basically the backstop to the other secretary in the office in my building as well.
Oh, okay, so she's not doing that, then she's helping out.
She's answering phones and answering the door constantly, yes, because
And
of
they're
moving,
picking
they're
up
out parents.
new student registration, they're dealing with, at the middle school level, they're dealing with.
Yeah, I get it at the middle and high school. I was just confused about the elementary school.
Okay.
We talked about stipends for a while.
Yep.
One of the things that we asked Jack and Frank to come back with is a report out of the line items where we have a $0 actual in 2019, but we're still budgeting in 2021, and also the reverse.
Okay.
If we're seeing a higher actual in 2019 than we're seeing in the current request.
Perfect. Thank you.
What else did was that the
That's correct, yeah, because there were a few lines where there was a 0 actual but 1,000 budgeted, so.
Okay, perfect.
Does that bring us to librarians, 67? That looks contractual. Yes, no?
That one has its own bargaining group.
Jack, does it make sense that we have STEM and a MASIC librarian?
The reason why is they are their own group, and there's 2 individuals in that group. They are not library media specialists. These are librarians, and they're a union of 2 people. One is stationed at STEM right over here, and the other one is stationed at MASIC circulation. I can check their increase, Dave, if you want, but I'm quite sure that that's contractual.
All right. I think we can move on to extra work.
This, I asked about this question. This is on page 1 of the handout that was at our desks at the bottom. There's explanation on some of the reasons why SPED had a summer PPTs last year was a one-time expenditure, guidance curriculum expansion to bring developmental guidance to all 3 middle school grade levels, and summer evaluations in psych. But, well, so it's not per line item, but for the object code itself. Because if you look at page 71, if you look at the bottom of this object code, my question was, your 2019 actuals are much higher than what you're budgeting in the current year and in the budget year, in the upcoming budget year. So I was just wondering what all those expenditures were for.
Okay. And what is this extra work encompass, Jack?
Here on page 71, and up top here, extra work certified math coordinator, system-wide. Sheila, can you speak to that one with the math coordinator?
The K-5 coordinators for their contract are paid for 3 days during the summer to take a look at the SBAC results when they come out, help prepare things for teachers prior to our August PD days.
So is this all for, is this for the whole account? Because this account starts, Jack, on page 68 and goes to 71. So is all this extra work for just the summer, or what is it? Is this our current staff getting additional money? What is the?
We'd have to go through each one. My belief, this is all of our current staff, and it is them doing extra work. I believe most of this is summer, but if we can go through each one, we can find out. So would you like to, where would you like to start?
We'll start right on page 68.
Okay.
Extra work certified reading, Monroe out.
So Sheila, you want to speak to that?
Sorry, what page are we starting on?
68?
68, sorry, I was up. The reading, in the summertime at all 3 elementaries, we offer reading for our students who have been through the SRBI process, who had concerns for.
So those 3 amounts at the $88,007 for the 3 schools are all for summer work?
Correct. And
Okay.
that may also include a reading consultant to come in and test a student who's new and moving into the district. Some of that happens before school and some of it happens after school has started.
All right, so perfect. Let's move forward. That's all summer. So then on the next page, you have something called extra work detention. So that is for, I'm assuming, a teacher if they have to run detention hall?
We're looking at the one, extra work cert tutor program mass, you're on page 69?
Yeah, where it says.
Yeah, middle, I was gonna ask that too, because you have nothing for 2019.
Right, and
My-
then you have 8 days at $125.
Oh,
budgeted.
yeah. Jake, you want to speak to that one?
We added Saturday detention as an alternative to suspension.
Saturday detention.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have to be done with Jake, you need a certified person to do that? Is that the best?
It's a flat fee. It could be any person. It's been teachers because we think they know the building and they know the kids. We try to get somebody who can maybe do some work, help them out a little bit.
Yeah. Make it productive?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
There's a couple more of these, right, where
Well, they're all zeros.
they're zeroed
Yeah,
out,
they're-
but we're still getting charges
was-
against that line.
Right. That's, yeah. Homework. The first line, there's actual in 2019, but we're not using that anymore. What is that, Jack?
The 3179.
Mm-hmm.
That was one-time PPTs that were done last year, not needed this year, not budgeted for.
Is that the same for the extra work certified special ed of 343179? You have a 340197 and a 343179.
So page 69, the top
Right,
line.
the first line and then almost to the
Right.
bottom, 1, 2, 3.
The top
Right above
line,
39,000.
Three
that was
more.
tutoring,
Next
that was
Right.
done in 2019 expenditure, and that's not needed in the current year, it's not budgeted. The
So,
first one.
Thank you, Jack has an answer.
I believe that's the homework center.
The homework what?
We have a teacher that mans a homework center at STEM campus and at Jockey Hollow campus, 2 days a week. Gives kids an opportunity to stay after school, have access to computers, to the library, to reference materials, etc., that they may not be able to have at home. We also recommend kids to the homework center if homework is a struggle for them, because sitting independently at home, it's difficult for them to complete homework. It's supervised by a staff.
Perfect, so we actually expended money in that in 2019, but we have
Correct.
nothing budgeted for next year.
I can't answer why it isn't budgeted for next year,
Because
we're
we still
using it.
use that.
It's in operation.
All right, so,
So that should go in.
Jack,
Right.
is that the,
And the current
first,
year.
is that the top line on page 69?
It's the top line of page 69 and the final line of page 68.
right, so we
Nothing.
so we expended money, we still use this program, so that should be something that's in the budget.
It sounds valid.
Right, but then that's, if we move forward, we would obviously have a mistake next year with it not being properly budgeted and
Wouldn't be
actually
funded.
having expense for this.
But for the current year, that money has to be somewhere because we have to be paying that person in the current year and it's zeroed out for the current year as well.
So where is it?
Zero in the current year for it, yeah.
But it has to be somewhere.
It has, they're
'cause we're
using
paying the
it.
person, right?
Right.
Well,
Right, we're paying a teacher.
We're
Yeah.
paying somebody to do it because we're using it right now, right? So where is
Yeah.
that person being expended to?
and
Whoever's
back to
using
George's
it.
point, it should be taken out, for next year, taken out and put in the right.
Right.
Jackie, is this
Maybe.
included, I know some of
They
the
may
Jockey
have,
Hollow
they may have.
students stay
I
after
have another line that's got this
waiting
funding
for
in it.
basketball practice or
Right.
games to start.
Who knows?
Coaches do that.
Coaches do that and we're not
Yeah,
paying them for that.
If there's practice at 4:30 for one of the
There's-
teams, while
there's
one of the other teams is
one,
practicing, the coaches will
two,
do a quote-unquote
three.
study hall.
Right, this is all.
Three on the next page
Right,
too.
and this
Page
is all
70.
related to homework.
Okay.
At either campus, 2 days a week.
And then there's one on,
Right.
the next.
So we need to find out where these
71.
people are being expended to this year. And are they properly budgeted for 21, because in these accounts they're not, and we've had expenses in them in 19.
On page 70, there's 3 more of those.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say the same thing, Don, on page yeah,
Yeah.
there are 3 more of them.
And
Right.
then there's a big one on page 71.
So
And we are expending these.
Right, we
Right.
clearly have people doing them, so where where is that salary going? And why are we is there gonna be a problem in the 21 budget where we
Oh,
go,
yeah.
oh, we didn't budget for
Oh, well,
that, we
because I'm
under
page 70
budgeted?
alone, it's 11,000 almost,
Right.
you're right.
Guidance, speech,
Mhm.
sounds needed.
I mean, if it's accounted for somewhere else in the budget, in another line, then fine, but we need to understand.
Right. Yeah, we'll line up the name of position with the expenditure.
Oh, here comes Joe, hopefully he's got good news. We got good news, they approved it, all right.
Good.
Thank you, Joe. Did they ask you questions?
They did.
You got it approved, good job.
So then that makes our budget submission date January 23rd, which then gives us
Another workshop.
We
a
need to have
couple,
another-
we're definitely gonna need to add on some workshops in January. Because there are lots and lots of questions that we need follow-up answers to before we can move forward, so. Thank you, Nick, for bringing that idea up. Let me tell you how quickly I got that letter out today to get on that agenda.
So, Don,
It's my first 100
will we
days.
have Frank for the entirety of that, if we need it to the last day,
What do you mean?
that extension that we're granted?
No, so this is gonna be going forward, our new
Okay.
submission
All right,
date
all right.
is now going
this
forward,
year.
is going to be January 23rd, where we have to vote on our budget to the first selectman, that is our new submission date. This year and also in every
Consecutive.
consecutive year
changed the
moving
charter.
out.
They amended the charter.
They amended the charter, because they did a resolution, right? To
Yes.
amend the charter for us tonight.
No, in the charter, everything's driven by date. It doesn't matter if it's a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
We were at the council chambers a Saturday night one time.
It doesn't matter, it's a specific date.
Right.
So now it's been, the resolution was, and thank you Ken Kellogg, who took that letter, wrote a resolution of today to present to town council for us to move that date.
That's good, because we definitely, it's, we're
Yes.
going on 3 hours and we're on page, what,
69,
71?
71.
And we're gonna need to schedule more days before we adjourn.
But at least we now know we can do this in January, so now we're not on the time crunch on January 6th to have this
right.
done. So we will be able to now have, and excuse me while I look at this, we will, have the 13th if we'd like to meet. We would also have the 20th, which is our regular meeting, so we can do the 6th, the 13th, and the 20th.
21. 20 is Martin Luther King.
Oh, sorry, 21, thank you, Nick. So it'll be the 6th, the 13th, and the 21 to have these all done before we have to submit them on the 23rd.
I say we plan on it.
I would say
Unfortunately.
everybody put that on their calendar, 6, 13, 21, well, 2 of them will be Board of Education meetings, so
Regular
the
meeting.
only addition will be the 13th for another workshop, because it's clear that we're gonna need all of those.
Martin Luther King?
Yeah, one of those is a Tuesday.
Yeah, the
After.
21st.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, instead of 20.
Yes, because the holiday is the 20th.
Is it safe to assume those will all begin at 6?
I don't know.
Okay.
Definitely the 13th would probably begin at 6.
Okay.
I would say that we would need to keep our agendas extremely light
Yeah.
for the other 2 nights. I know 6 is very difficult for people to get to, so maybe
About
we can do
6:30?
6:30 or
Okay.
as a compromise, because I know it is difficult to get here at 6.
Yeah, 6:30 is definitely better.
Want to do
Yeah.
6:30 on all 3, or keep the 13th at 6?
Let's just do 6:30.
On all
6:30
3?
for
Yeah.
3?
Okay, all right.
Is that acceptable to everybody?
Yeah, 6:30 is better.
Yeah, agreed.
Perfect, I'm on
6 is
vacation, it
impossible.
can't be better.
Yeah.
Jerry, wait, you have to cancel your vacation
It's a
plans.
cruise, I didn't take insurance, sorry.
Wait, can I go, can you stow away me
Sure.
on board? I have a valid,
That sounds great.
Passport.
No problem.
21st, yeah. Yep. And good job, Joe, again.
Thank
you. Selling that. Alrighty.
72.
Yep. This is extra work OT non-certified. And Jack, what would this encompass?
If we look at the first one here, extra work aids summer system-wide. Is that with summer school, special ed folks? No?
We expended nothing in 2019, had a huge budget in 2020 last year, and now it's dropping down to 1,000.
The comment is no expenditures for 4 years, but $1,000 if needed. Just take the 1,000 out.
Take the 1,000 out.
Okay.
I think that's, is that notes for other ones too?
That was entered by Frank, that's the FC there. So Frank, was that what was that? 1,000 if needed and just?
Yeah, it was a
got it.
placeholder.
Oh,
You know,
placeholder.
You don't
All right.
know, and
Right.
I don't know
But if
enough
we
of your
haven't
history.
expended anything in 4 years, I think it's safe to
Right.
say we can remove it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
Is that the same for the, where it says, I think
Next
this
one
is
down.
central office? Or, oh, I'm sorry, extra work aids?
72.
Yeah, that's another one where we had nothing for 19.
4 years, but they didn't budget anything.
And 0 for 21.
Okay.
Well, that's a sped line. I don't know if you want to ask Kay, that's a sped line.
Right, but they didn't, there was no expenditure, they budgeted something in 2020, doesn't look like they've expended anything.
Right, right. No, I'm just wondering if there was a program that was
Yeah, Kay, is there?
I'm not sure which line you're looking at right now, is it 1,000 or 12,000?
It's the 1,000, it's like 4 down, extra work, non-certified office, bed.
Page 72.
You don't, that's not you?
I don't do salary, but if you give me a name, I might be able to give you a description, so it's just a matter of finding out who it is, and I might be able to tell you what, but I don't budget salary.
Gotcha.
Same on
Right, the same.
751, wait, what's that one? 236?
Yep, 236.
Which one are you on right now?
The next one down after that, we expended nothing in 2019. 1325 was put in 2020. We've just, it looks like put a placeholder in of $1,000.
So I just, the two ladies right here said that's never been expended, so you can probably take that other.
Never been expended, it's being removed.
Is that the 1320? Oh, the 1,000?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay,
1, 2, 4th line down.
yep,
All
take
right.
that out.
236 you just did?
Yep,
Or no?
they've
Okay.
never used that, expended it, so it should come right out.
And then 383?
Go down.
Same thing?
383, which is
Four
extra
more down.
work,
Yeah.
executive
1500.
assistant to the superintendent, central office. Again, nothing's been expended,
218.
Yeah, we can take it out.
take it out.
1,500.
Same with 393?
393, extra work, non-certified trans, central office,
Transportation.
I don't know.
The non-certified, assistant superintendent, there's something out of 2020 though, so I don't know if take that out.
Is something been expended there in 2020? Jack, what would that be?
I'm just catching up to you.
That is for your executive assistant.
Third from the bottom. Third up
Yeah,
from the bottom.
so we're just saying we're wiping that one out,
No,
1,800?
no, Linda just said you've expended money in the current year budget in that line item, so we can't just wipe it out. What is that, what are you paying out of there, and is that something that you need to pay next year? You didn't pay anything in 2019, but you have paid something
Can you see in the
current year.
budget detail there what was used?
I'm trying, it's a little slow, but I'll get back to you on that.
Right, so you don't know what the extra work is?
Off the top of my head, I don't. The only thing I can think of was time for interviews, manning the doors, that could be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Terry, yeah.
Right,
she's been
because it was
staying late,
impossible to-
Setting up for the interviews.
yeah, having
Right.
somebody watch people come in and out.
Yep.
So that's what it could be, but we'll get confirmation from
All
Linda.
right, well, if that's it, then we can wipe that out for 21.
Go to the next one down. We spent 1,094, but nothing's budgeted.
Well, no, we'll need to go one up, extra work, non-certified trans.
3757, right?
Yeah. 393.
Trans CO.
It's the third one up.
Yep,
Third one
third
from the
one up.
bottom.
We had nothing in 2019. We had a budget of 3757 in 2020. That same 3757
Oh,
is
06
for
is
next
still there.
year.
Yeah.
Do we know
Linda,
what that
once,
is?
once you're caught up, if you could look that one up.
The one before was for Terry for additional hours, the one
Yeah.
that we were, that I.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was
Right.
for the interviews, yeah,
So I would remove that 1,500.
okay. And then the other one, Linda, if you could look that up.
What is that?
So somebody is getting paid on that line
So somebody is being paid on that line.
for miscellaneous hourly, is what it says.
Does it say who?
Yeah, do you want me to say the name? It's, her name's Tap. Secretary?
And does it say what location?
What is it?
That looks like a 2019, or you're talking about that line?
Yeah, that's
That
the
was-
one. I'm looking at 2019 and then.
That was before my time, from what I know of her. I think that she was invited to do some office work and got paid extra for that. It was before.
Is that person still there and getting paid this current year?
Not for that type of work.
This year Enzo's gotten paid on that line. So, just so you, there's an expenditure this year as well.
And I'm sorry, we can't hear clearly. What is this for?
They're saying that the additional office, what was, so,
Non-certified office, miscellaneous office, extra.
I don't know what Enza would be getting, because she's a 12-month. I know that the other secretaries, don't they get summer pay for their extra 5 days or whatever, but that doesn't make.
there is a piece in there for X amount of hours that they're supposed to do over the summer. That's within their contract, that would be the hourly.
Yeah.
This I don't believe is that, though. Right, Linda?
It says regular overtime for Enzo. That's what it says. So, I don't know.
This is in the transportation line that we're talking,
Yeah, I think we're on the one above. Oh, I'm doing the non-certified.
Yeah,
office
I think
and
we're-
extra work. Are we
No, we're on
Are we not up to date?
No, this is extra work, non-certified trans.
Oh, okay.
Central
CO.
office?
Sorry, my fault, my bad.
Okay. So wipe out what just was all said. because
Yeah. Erase that from the record.
Okay, where are we?
We're
Extra-
on
Alright.
Extra
the
work,
the 393 account, which is extra work, non-certified trans central office.
Let's see, nothing's been extended ever.
Ever. 375706 gone.
that's coming out.
Ever, that's great.
Okay.
We're up to $7,000 on that page right there.
There you go.
Okay.
Can I-
408.
On that
Sorry.
page 72, the next one, oh, we did that. the
Yeah,
office.
408.
No, the 396.
Extra work, non-certified off. Oh.
So this
I'm
is
sorry.
another one where there's an expenditure in 2019 against that line, but we're not funding it next year.
Yeah,
that's what was just being said.
yeah, that was what's being
Okay.
said. So that's all okay.
Right,
Good.
There is nothing there,
and there shouldn't be.
and there shouldn't be.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
408.
Which is extra work, non-certified office, Fawn Hollow. Doesn't look like there was anything in there in 2019, but we're carrying 1,000, so it looks like it may be a placeholder.
I don't know, it says see history, FC, because there is someone that comes in the summer, and they came in this summer.
That'd be Frank, right? Frank.
Yeah, that was Frank's entry, the FC.
We haven't had expenses since 2017.
And there's
I know.
nothing in their current year? 1,000 is out.
Yeah.
It may be hitting a different line, it's just not hitting that line.
Right.
There's nothing been in there, so it could be a different line, Becky.
And if that person came in last summer, then, and clearly they got paid, then there would
Right.
have been.
It's just not that line. There hasn't been anything there in several years.
Yep.
Okay.
475.
Well, can we go to 469? There was a $12,000 expended in 2019 and now it's zero.
Yeah.
All the way across.
Accounting assistant, it's 469.
Yeah, extra work, non-certified accounting assistant, and then there's a C after it.
That must be central office.
It's probably, you can only get so many characters.
Over here.
But we spent like almost 13,000 in 2019. Have we spent anything and it's not budgeted? Could be right, just want to make sure we're not making a mistake.
Mhm. Can you see what that was for, Linda? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know.
It was for Margaret for overtime.
And has there anything been expended in 2020?
Yeah.
Okay, so it,
Need
the-
something back in there then.
right. Because there was nothing budgeted in 2020, we have expenditures in there, and there's nothing budgeted in 21.
So Linda, that line is in deficit?
Was it?
That line is in deficit.
There's no budget and there's a lot of big things.
What's been paid to date?
What was Margaret doing last year that you had such a high?
That's
She
current,
was-
this current year.
This year too, there's a $5,800 expenditure for this year as well.
So far.
So far.
So far.
All right, so it looks
All right, we
like
gotta
it's
look at that
tracking
line.
according to what we actually did last year.
Right.
Maybe
So
a
we,
little less.
so that line needs to be looked at, so our savings may just have been wiped out with this
Last year.
not being properly budgeted for.
But wait, there's more.
Wait, there's more. Thanks, George.
Yeah.
All right, George.
Yeah, and part of the expenditure in the current year, with me being new, I'm drawing on the office staff quite a bit to spend a lot of time
Right,
with
but it's-
me and on the budget. So,
Right, but she also has expense in 2019, so it's fair to say it's been the past 2 years.
She hasn't been on.
there was extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah,
that,
she was backfilling a lot. She was basically doing 2 jobs last year.
I don't think anybody's questioning what she's
Yeah.
doing. They're questioning the fact it's not down on the sheet.
And it's also not, but if this is gonna be something that she's gonna do, well, then that should be budgeted for, because I don't wanna be sitting here next year and being told we didn't budget it correctly.
Yeah, no one's questioning what she's
Right.
doing. Oh my gosh.
No, that's not the question.
No.
The last year's situation, she was covering 2 positions, so that's why you see those costs. This year, I don't know.
Maybe it's not as
This
much.
year,
maybe
it's
we don't-
because I'm new and the amount of time I'm drawing on the staff, particularly in the budget assembly and working on the budget. So, and hopefully you won't be facing it next year, but you probably should put a placeholder in there.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
some
And-
reasonable forecast.
Right, because we're gonna have a new director of finance, who next year will be the first time they're doing their budget.
Mhm.
So
I'm
you.
hoping next year is easier for him or her.
But what I'm saying is that you may be having extra work needed by these people because you'll have a new person there too. So we just should be budgeting
I'm
something.
not arguing with you, I'll agree, but,
Yeah.
put a placeholder in there. Just pointing out some of the circumstances last year
Oh,
and this year that you
absolutely,
had.
but we're just saying we don't want, if it's something that we should
Yep.
be budgeting, we should be putting it in there.
Sure.
Is that a continuation on, if you go to the next page on 74, the top of it, it's extra work assistance? And HR would be something different, correct?
HR is different, yep.
Okay.
And that one does look like a placeholder. Joe, any ideas with extra work assistant? there?
We looked at there's nothing there at 1,500 in the budget, but it's pretty much of a placeholder,
Out.
in case HR needed.
Which one's that one?
The 500.
Top one.
placeholder.
Yeah.
Okay. George, what did you want to go back to?
475 is another one.
Yes.
Cause you're nothing 1,500, now 2,500, right?
Yep,
So,
nothing, yeah, 1,500, now 2,500, correct.
what is it, extra work non-certified, EPCO?
That's building the budget.
Central office.
Yep.
Oh, no, that's accounts payable.
Accounts payable, oh, that's
Accounts
what it is,
payable.
accounts payable.
I was gonna say that was gonna be
So that's
the
separate than the
payroll,
other
that's
one,
different.
right?
So we didn't have anything back, are we expending something this year? And,
Yeah.
and had it not been budgeted, I mean, had it not been expended in previous years, is this the first year we're using this?
Not been expended in previous years. This is the first year.
Okay, and we're increasing it next year. Is there a reason why we would be increasing it? It's never been expended in previous years. Obviously, we have something this year.
What is it for?
That's accounts payable?
Accounts payable.
That's it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so that'd be within finance.
I would expect, yeah.
Right, so the question is, we've not expended in previous years
Right.
except for this year. We're increasing it next year. Is there a reason why we would be increasing it?
$1,000.
Yes, because the staff is doing more of what they should be doing. It's putting the budget together, working a lot on it. It involves both accounts payable, involves payroll, and I see that you would need extra work to do the job right. So we put in, brought up to 2,500.
So this is stuff that cannot be done within their current hours of their work.
We hit 60 hours of work 2 weeks ago. We were here Saturdays, we were working evenings. And although we set this budget up, it should be a lot easier for you next year. This staff is quite busy. You have one person pays all the bills, $57 million. You have one person paying all the bills for the Board of Ed, and one person doing payroll. You don't have a lot of spare staff, believe me.
Oh.
You don't. So, it's an estimate that additional time would be needed, so we put it in. If you want to take it out, but we'll find out next year.
Frank,
Yep.
the 1586.46 that's been budgeted for the current year that we're in, would you expect us to, that line to go in deficit based on all the extra work that's been going on?
Linda's shaking her
What's our
head at already,
expenditure
yes.
year to date? How much?
46.
4,600. Good point, Nick. You're already at
Is
4,600.
that 4,600 is due to
This.
this mess that we have,
A
right?
good portion of it, yes, Dave. Jeff, yeah.
Bring together the budget.
So
We
maybe
shouldn't
it's not
have this next
4,600
year.
next
I
year, but
really don't think so.
2,500 may be
You know,
reasonable.
It's a lot of cleanup, but you can see there's still more to do. I mean, everybody's been
It's gonna
working at a
take 2 years.
feverish pace, but it's
With a
come,
new-
it's come quite far, but it's got quite a ways to go, as you can see.
And with a new director of finance, he or
Right.
she is gonna need all the whole
Right.
team underneath.
Right.
Okay. I guess we will move on to 54. Extra work on call system-wide. Well, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Extra work, non-certified technician assistant. We had something spent in 2019, nothing in the 2020 budget, nothing for 21.
Sorry, which page are you on?
74.
That looks like it got added to the line below.
It could be, but let's just confirm that,
Okay.
because the line below is called extra work on call.
Yeah,
IT.
Paul, you want to explain the on-call work for IT?
Yeah, we have an on-call technician, basically, overnight from 5:30 to 7:30 the following morning to cover town-wide any on-call events. For example, we've had issues, on the town side. We've also had issues with, some of our building management systems, going down and losing heat in some of the schools. We've had to respond to that, so.
And the on-call, what happens is the one tech gets paid for the weekend to be, explain the conditions of being on
Yeah,
call.
so the on-call, the way we use it right now is they get a $75 stipend to carry the phone for the week. And if there's an on-call event, typically what we do is, if they need to respond and actually come in, we'll modify their work week, the hours for that week. If they come in for 2 hours, we'll let them go home early.
And they have to stay within proximity of the district, they can't travel.
There's a whole list of conditions. They have to be within 25 miles of town hall. They have to carry, again, an extra phone, not just their work phone, the on-call phone. They have to respond within an hour, sometimes on site within an hour. So
be out of town vacationing or partying or anything like that, so, yeah, their life is on hold for a week.
Okay. And how about the line above it, Linda, the technician assistant? There was something expended in 2019, but no budget.
There's been money expended on it every year and no budget.
All right, so that needs to be corrected and fixed.
Donna, what was that one you just said?
Extra work.
That was 523.
523.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
second
yeah.
line up from, on 74.
Yeah.
They've been expending money every year, but there's been no budget in 2020
Right,
or
right.
21.
So we're recommending that you put a number in there.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be fixed and something needs to be put in there in line with what is the historical history of what has been spent. All right,
Nothing on interns?
nothing in intern, so let's move on. Custodial overtime emergency.
Right, this was one of the other cuts you'll see on the superintendent's list. Again, as we went through areas, this was one of the places we identified. So within this one, you'll see on the cut sheet, OT custodial was cut by 7 grand, correct? Let's see.
Well, it's cut from the budget, but it's a $10,000 increase from the year before.
And then that, yep, I see what you're talking about.
And if I'm, let's see. And right now, we have expended about $22,000 in that account through November 30th. Linda, can you look at 567? We had 0 spent in 2019, but there is a budget, a pretty large budget in 2020, and it looks like we just put 1,000 in for 21.
76.
76, the first line, please. Yes, yes, that one, please. I just want to make sure that.
We haven't expended anything,
Ever?
ever.
Ever?
Take it out.
Take it out.
Man, this was another, on my sheet of questions, I asked if this was the last question on the bottom of page 1.
Okay.
The object code for this whole page, 751370, in these books, where we got this, FY18 and FY19 actuals. So for this object code, 18 actuals are 82,607, and FY19 actuals are 85,254. So even though the superintendent cut it down to 95, I thought it could come down another 5 or 7.5 or something, but the answer that was given was that it leaves us vulnerable to larger issues. I mean, this is really the unknown unknowns, but.
Right, but that account, has never been anything expended, so.
Yeah, I'm talking about the whole.
Yeah, the
object
whole
code.
thing, the
Right.
whole deal.
Globally,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, the expenditure last year were 85,000, and budget this year is 117, and we thought that was high. So we put a placeholder in the 95,000. And if you look at the, total, when you see 3 zeros in budgeting, it's an estimate. You know, it's our best estimate of what it is. So
But I was just-
we have a budget in there of a 95,000 for that line item.
Right, but there's things like custodial overtime school activities. I mean, that's not gonna be an emergency item, and that's going from, can you look at that account 574, please?
Yeah, you're going from
Right,
4,777 to 10,000.
right. And that is not something
Okay.
like an emergency that's gonna happen, that's school activities.
And the only reason I said another 5,000 would come out of this object code is because the year before last, we expended 82,607.
Yeah.
If that
Right.
was like 98 or 100, I'd say, oh well.
That's a good
Right.
point.
So,
This current year, we've spent 1569. 2019, we spent 4,700. 18, we spent $6,000.
right. Jake, did you wanna say something with this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how I responded to the custodial overtime. You know, I'm losing a custodian here, and we talked about taking out summer work also. My custodians I currently have left, they need to take vacations, and also I still have to get the building clean, so currently we're using overtime to cover that run for that custodian that we're not replacing. So we're gonna have to start moving some people around. You know, this is a busy building, and so I'm nervous to be cutting any further overtime out, and I think I even advocated for adding some overtime in. I don't know where it hits as
Right,
exactly.
that actually is a different line item, that's the next one down that we're not discussing, which is custodial overtime, other activities. This one is regarding school activities.
You're looking at 567 right now?
574.
574. Which is overtime school activities.
Yeah, isn't that basketball games or?
Well,
I
I'm
don't
wondering,
know.
I'm wondering if it's things like open houses.
It would have to tell us which
Can you see that
Right.
detail in there?
Right.
But I know that might be
It's just gonna tell me who got paid on that line.
It's not
How
going to
much
give
has
you the
been
detail.
spent year-to-date, Linda, on that?
1569.
I'm sorry, how much?
1,569.
Okay. You're going
All
into
right.
your winter months. Again,
Yeah.
you see all the zeros there, so it was an estimate for
I mean, if it was
10,000
things
in.
like open houses or parent night, we would have seen more than that hit. So
Well,
it
you
could
know
probably get
what, though?
reduced.
And you guys know I was mad a half hour ago. You gotta listen to what Jake is saying, though. This is the largest school that we have. 2, sometimes 3 schools larger than any school.
Oh, right, I'm not saying that, but where is that amount hitting? I don't know if that's hitting this particular
Understood,
line
but if we're
item.
I think what I'm trying to say is if we're gonna take it from this line item, then we need to put it back into overtime and not take 5,000 from overtime.
And that may be it, but that's what we need to kind of discuss. Where is custodian overtime for Massac
Versus system-wide.
Gotcha.
versus system-wide hitting? Because we may just move, we may be moving and not changing it, but moving it from between, you know, where it should rightfully go.
So we can move from system-wide to Massac.
Correct, and I have no problem with that if Jake is saying he needs that, it's just that we need to look at this and
Put it in the
make,
right place.
put it in the right place.
Linda, are the OT lines broken out by building at all?
No.
Right, that's what I thought.
System-wide.
They're just system-wide. Yeah, that's what I thought.
So where would like a Massac custodian is doing extra work here at Massac, where would that,
School activities system-wide.
so it would be in school activities?
Yep.
And what would be then go to other activities?
My thought is if they did something like a performance or something after school, I'd have to look back at the details.
So let's say they had the orchestra concert tonight, they're cleaning up after that, that's not school activity, that's other activity?
I honestly don't know.
We don't pay
I'd
them
have to
overtime
check
for
those.
that.
No, I'm just as examples.
Like,
I'm trying to distinguish what they consider
So
school activity and other activity.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. So for instance, I brought a custodian on Saturday, which I would normally do because we had a robotics competition.
Yeah.
So I would have paid for that because it's a school. I don't know what.
Great.
Which of those? It would
No,
be. That's a
no,
good
that's
example.
perfect, that's
Yeah.
perfect. So where would that be accounted for?
I'd have to check. I can't see from this, I can only see who got paid, I can't see.
Right, so, okay, so we don't know where then that would, if that person who came in on Saturday for robotics, we don't know what line item overtime they're hitting,
My thought is that it would hit other activities.
other activities.
My thought, but
Could we look into to see where that's hitting so that we have that then correct? Because if we just need to move this around, let's move it around.
Thank you. That's all I, yeah.
Wait, can I just, so if OT school activities, would that be someone who like works like a night shift and then comes in during the day?
don't know,
And one of
that's
the
the
things would
question.
happen is if they have to go over, like to Jake's point, they're down a person and they've had a big activity that night and they need to stay beyond their regular day to get the place cleaned up for the next morning. That's an OT scenario that you guys would have once in a while, correct?
Got it.
And just that but the auditorium, we have outside renters using the auditorium, and so that's not a school activity, it's an other activity. So like we just had the Nutcracker this weekend, they had a Sunday show, so we paid a custodian overtime, we bill that out to the renter.
Right, the person pays for it, so it really doesn't hit here because then that's a wash. Right, how do we account for that? how do we account for
In
that?
terms of the custodian on a outside activity, that would go through you guys in the business office, right, when you do the building use form, and here's the rental, and here's your costs for the
Right.
custodian.
So how is that hit the general ledger and
You
these
would
expenses?
credit back for the overtime, not the building
On the
rental.
line item.
Hit the line item, credit back.
So you
for the
wouldn't just show it as gross and then have a revenue, you would net it out of the
overtime. Well,
expenditure?
the figure that's in the budget would be the actual figure, the net figure,
Net figure.
Yeah.
So it's budgeted based on net figure.
on your estimate of what revenues are. And that's why history is important. If you look at that, last year you spent 68,400, and we're estimating 70,000.
But that was without that last year was without the loss of the custodian at Massac.
Right.
Yes.
And without the loss of the summer work.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm worried about the guys not being able to take vacations this summer.
Yep. So we need to look at this more, you need to
Yeah,
look at
that
this
one.
more closely and make sure that these are, this is correct and this is accounting for that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm wondering, guys, once we add up everything, what did cutting the custodian
I was
save
just
us?
gonna say that.
What
When you
did
look
it
at
save
the
us?
overtime,
Should I just
right?
throw in the custodian at the $60,000 and stop playing around with all the?
Well,
and
that's
so
a
add it
question.
up for me, because
Well,
I
that's a
really want to
question
know.
that Jack needs to
Yeah.
answer.
Right. I was thinking the same thing. How much are we paying in overtime in all this
Yeah.
by cutting a position?
You need
Are
to
we
do that
saving
analysis, Jack, and
$3,000?
have
No,
that for
I-
us at the
listen,
next
and
meeting.
you guys, I mean, you've all been involved in the schools. You know how important it is, and sometimes we cut our up our nose to spite our face.
Well, that's why there needs to be a full analysis. If we're paying that in overtime, we need to have an analysis of that then.
Jeff, I can tell you, we have an actual calculation we use. I don't have it on top of my head, but when I'm bringing in guys or girls, for overtime, for instance, to cover detail and routes right now, because the position currently exists, and it's not on top of my head, but for instance, we do something like 4 hours every other night for a maximum of 12 hours per week. In other words, you could go through it overtime and calculate exactly out what we're saving.
The one other,
But the
right.
overtime they're paid is at time and a half.
Right.
So it's
The-
not a one for one.
Right, the
but
one
at
other
least
variable,
closer
the one
numbers.
other variable in there is if you do cut a custodian, you do have to look at the runs across the district, if you go that route, so it doesn't become an overtime scenario.
Right, so you need to do that analysis and have that to us for the
Right.
next meeting.
And the position, and Jerry, I agree with you, but if you reinstate that position, and he or she is working with that time frame, it may not fit the overtime.
Oh, agreed.
Sector.
Agreed,
Right.
and there's
That's why-
benefit packages
Yeah.
and vacation,
That's
I
why we're saying you
understand.
need to do a full analysis of what Jake is saying and what, in this, because it could be that we're gonna just pay it in overtime. And let's know that.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll move on to the next one, which is custodial overtime snow removal, and I'm gonna say, what have we expected this year so far? Because quite honestly, you know, we're going into number 3 tomorrow.
What's your time?
That's
So year to date?
$567.
We expended $8,048.
Okay.
We can do another 3 storms, Donna.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're out there with the shovel, Jerry.
Yeah, that's gonna be our new job, Water Vet pitching in for, as a volunteer shoveling snow.
No one's gonna run.
All right.
We'll be running, all right.
Yeah.
Running away.
I think we should leave that. Move on.
But we budgeted 35, and Jack increased it by 5,000.
Yeah, you can
Increased
see,
it by 5,000.
right, and
But
the
you've
original request was 47, and we did bring it back to 40.
In 2019, it was 39.
So you're
And
around
that was a
40.
light
I think
snow
that
year.
was a light snow
Right.
year.
So quite honestly,
That's our, yeah.
who knows, but this could be a area where we're short.
Budgeting for snow is a nightmare because does it fall during the school day? Does it fall on the weekends? Does it fall on a holiday? There are so many variables.
Yeah, crystal
So,
ball.
You know,
Yeah.
And if it falls on a holiday, isn't it double time compared to,
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
Right.
because the town
Yep.
has the
So
same
you
problem.
got all those variables. So anyway, we went with 40,000, which is based, you look at the history, we spent 39,000, 2019, put 40,000 in.
Did you,
What's the last 5 years? Look at the 5 years of actuals and see what your range really is.
Linda, can you
2
give
years
us the
ago-
last 5 years?
2 years ago, we spent $39,052. Last year, $39,201. So last 2 fiscal years, you spent $39,000
Okay.
a year. Went back 2 fiscal years.
Okay, so it's kind of reasonable. If you could get us, how far back do you go, Linda?
Go back to 2014.
Okay, so give that to us.
So 17 was 22,682.
Uh-huh.
16 was 15,790. 15 was 39,641, and 14 was 25,926. And then I think Greg just gave you 18.
Okay.
Yeah, 39.
It was 39.
I think 40 is good.
Yeah, so that's
Mhm.
reasonable, thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to custodian building check and call-in. It says a last-minute adjustment. Can you explain that?
Frank, can you speak to that one?
Let me see here.
Page 78.
Yep.
Linda, what's our expenditure to date in that 567?
3,647.
Well, already. And you're not even halfway through the fiscal year.
And what is it, 3,047?
3,647.
647, thank you.
Again, it's an estimate. You see my zeros on there?
Okay. What is this used for? I'm taking it this is used for a custodian calls in sick and you need to call somebody in?
No, this is
No.
weekend, come in, check me.
Sweeping the buildings,
Yeah.
like when they had a
Correct.
boiler snap at Jockey Hollow, and the janitor was just happened to be walking through and found the whole room flooded.
Power went out, somebody's got to come in and reset the switches to make sure that we got heat the next day, that sort of thing.
But do they, let me understand this, they show up every day on the weekend to make sure everything's okay? I thought the Honeywell system alerts them if there's a problem.
Not every weekend, and there are alerts that we get.
I think Jake has an answer to
Yeah.
this. Go for it, Jake.
I can give you an example.
Thank you.
We use an auditorium for an outside vendor came in this weekend and they used some smoke and it set off. It wouldn't allow us to reset the alarms in the building. You know, we can't have the building open if we don't have the fire alarm on, and so we'll contact one of the custodians, head custodian. He'll say, I mean, he's good about it, like, I'll come, but do you want me to come? Because they know that, you know, it costs us money. Like, yeah, we need the alarm set, so they come, they check it out, contact the fire marshal, got everything set for us. That's a building check, then check the whole building, check the whole system, reset everything, and then be on call until we know everything's up and running again.
Perfect, thank you for that explanation. But so they don't come in every day?
Not
The
every
system
weekend. Yeah, we'll get alerts on our cell phones that will say that we'll watch the switches in the building, the routers and the switches. But what that will tell us is if power goes out in some section of the building, Bill Jarosco's very good about checking with the custodian at each building, and he'll say, yeah, I think you need to go in for this one. So it is managed.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will move on to security overtime. And that pretty much looks in line, so let's just move on. All right, we'll move on to crowd control, timer, and scorer.
Mr. DeGennaro. And some of this is on the Q&A sheet too.
Come on up, John. Do you control these payroll accounts so that you know what's all these different things
Yeah, I
in
have a
there?
breakdown too as well for
Okay.
this budget and this year's budget and next
So
year's budget too.
you specifically budget for this and can talk to us?
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, and I don't know if any specific questions on any specific sports. It's based on actual people. So take for example, you know, for the winter we've had a site worker already for the girls' ice hockey game on this past Friday. This is the first year we're budgeting. I budgeted for girls' ice hockey as a site work, and then next year it's the same. So it's $75, 10 games. The budget line would be $750. So it depends on how you're staffing, and we've come in. We have not met our budget. You know, it looks like I've over budgeted, which I absolutely could see. But it's based upon what I think it's properly staffed a game, and you know, we went up in pay to entice workers to come. Hopefully that is working a little bit, but that's basically it as you go through every sport. And you see some sports are staffed more effectively. Thanksgiving Day game, to be honest with you, is most people we have at our games, it's the most difficult to staff, the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. So.
And I'd like to give a shout out to girls hockey who actually won on Friday night, and I'm not sure when the last time they won was. If ever.
Fourth grade. Fully.
So John, these increases specifically, the basketball from Massac going up almost, not quite double, but that's to entice people to do this, to be a scorer timer? Or is that?
Yeah, they went up, we were doing like, for the timer it was like 65, we went up to $75 for the prices, for the stipend, the game stipend.
Do we have an issue with getting someone to do these consistently?
Yeah. Most people want to I don't want to use the word volunteer because they are getting paid, but to take on that stipend.
Do we allow students to do this?
No, because
The league won't
with
let
timer score, with a timer or score at a basketball game, you don't want a student doing it because so for certain events you don't want it.
Against a student doing it.
Absolutely. If there's certain sports that do, take for example volleyball, we don't need an adult to do it, so the manager will do it for volleyball. So it is a little bit different for that sport. So
for basketball, you need a manager. I mean, you need a teacher or somebody.
Yeah, absolutely, that's true. You need one for the keep it score of the book and keep in the time.
Don't they have assistant coaches?
I'm sorry?
There's assistant coaches, right, that could do the book?
You usually want assistant coaches on the bench.
Well, yeah, but you have a freshman JV and varsity, so there's usually three.
So what the stipend pays for $75, if you're going to do the book, is for both the JV and the varsity game. And if you're going to do a varsity game, you would split it in half. So that's why the $75
So the
pays
stipends,
for
so
both.
that's just for the book, then you need the scorekeeper.
Yeah. So the book and the people rather do the book than the timer. Timer's a little bit more intense.
Get yelled at more?
You get yelled at more.
All right, John, I'm going to interrupt you a quick second. To our instructional leaders, we're only getting through the salary accounts tonight. There's nothing you need to stay here for. Please go. Because you can't answer any of those questions, so it's worth it. It's not worth it to have you sitting here. Please feel free to leave. John, unfortunately, you're still on the seats. That doesn't apply to you. Good night, thank you.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a happy holidays to everybody if we don't see you. We'll have you back up in the new year. Okay. And Julia, Mark, that goes for you guys. And Lee, too.
They're gonna single out now.
Well, I just
Anything
want them to know
specific
that,
for-
I said instructional leaders, but there are assistant principals that they can go to. They're not going to be answering or going into these things, so why bother staying here? They can go home. It's 9:30. I don't even know if it started snowing, so hey, take off while you can.
Thanks.
Don, in this category, page 81, it's a 0.6 increase.
Right.
Overall, so I don't think we need to be.
Right, I think this fluctuates. I think it's, we're not
Yeah.
talking big, huge
We have the
amount.
explanation of
Right.
why.
So let's move on.
All right.
And Kay and Darlene, there's nothing left for you guys either if you want to go to.
Officials is the same, right?
Officials is next.
Yeah,
Oh, this
officials.
was the big one we had a question on, as we have officials in 2 different
Oh,
accounts.
yeah.
So do we have an answer to that, Jeff?
Yeah, we did. We went back through it. We talked about it with finance, and the concern was if we moved them, losing the historicals was the concern. So, Linda, the other piece with the middle school being in the 8,000s, remember when we talked about this? Historicals was one part of it.
I have to double check that number, but from what I know, the one that's in the 1,000, the officials are employees.
Right.
The ones that are in the 8,000, I don't believe are employees, and I think that's basically how we code it.
The 8,000s were the Jockey Hollow, correct?
Yeah, so I'd have to look up that person, and I think that,
All right, so we still need clarification. So we still need clarification as why officials are in two different accounts. Right?
When we looked at it, we said we could move it, but there was concern about the historicals. Am I correct about that?
I think that we need to forget historicals and actually correct it so it's correct moving forward.
Okay.
That needs to be the
Put
key.
it where it should be.
Put it where it should be.
Yeah, I don't think the history's gonna matter. if
It
we
doesn't,
keep going
because
through
the
this year
history is
after year.
gone. If, once we budget it correctly moving forward, it's fine. The whole point is that we can't keep things in the wrong place and not budget correctly because we have a history there. We need to we need to budget accurately.
Okay,
All right.
Nurse overtime.
yeah. So this is another one without 2019 actuals.
Right.
Yep.
Thanks, John. Right, is John done?
John's done and you
done.
can go
Thanks,
home.
John.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Johnny boy.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Can you go back to officials for 1 second?
Yeah.
Hang on, John.
Apparently, John, I've been overruled.
No, I'm sorry, I just have to answer you back to the question that you just had.
Okay.
So the official line that's in the 1000s are for employees. The 758910 is officials for basketball for Jockey Hollow. We have not paid on that line since. bear with me.
So I'm sorry, what line was that again?
758910.
8.
When you said that there's officials in the 891.
Right, so the 8,000 series.
So we're looking at the officials that are in
The 1,000.
the 1,000 right now.
Right.
So that's the 75, 14, 20 line. So that's what we're looking at. There's a budget of 4,800.
Okay, well, I know the first question you had, there was that there was one in the 1000s and then there's one in the 8,000s.
Yes, you're right.
Correct.
So I was kind of addressing that.
At the last
If
meeting.
you want to wait till we get to the 8,000s, that's fine.
So what is in the,
We haven't paid on the official line in the 8,000 account since 2016, and the reason why it's in the 8,000s is because it's paid on a purchase order. It's not an employee through payroll.
all right, so, but we're talking right now the 1,000, so that's the 420 account?
That's the legit one.
So that, what's the that one?
There's still two lines. There's the 731 and the 733.
Right. It says, one says boys basketball Jockey Hollow, girls basketball Jockey Hollow. So we just need to make a decision as to what's the correct account and budget the officials correctly if they're paying out of salary. If it's a purchase order, then that falls to an expense account.
And there are
So
line,
aren't they all under the 420 account? I guess I'm confused. I don't know.
No, you only have $4,800 total budget on the 420 account. So why are those hitting there but other
Because
officials
those
are
are
hitting?
salaries.
those are employees.
Those are employees.
I don't,
So the employees are
Employees,
getting the
that doesn't
1,000.
make sense, though, John, right? I mean,
Referees?
we don't have employees officiating basketball
No.
in middle school.
No, definitely
Yeah,
not.
right?
Unless Ray Casper.
There's no employees being refs.
Right.
I could tell you that for a fact, being at all the Jockey Hollow games.
Well, there's actual charged to
That's
those
what I'm saying,
lines
so
too.
something's gotta be off.
Something's got to be off here.
Say again, Jack?
Well, there's two thoughts happening right now. One is, we did at one time have certified staff officiating basketball. Not all basketball, some games. Rick
Bar
has
band.
Diamond, Chris Overcash are two that I know of off the top of my head. I'm not sure if members certified officials. Right, so they, as certified officials. The other piece was that for a period of time up until 2016, that both lines were being budgeted. In other words, you were double budgeting for officials for middle school basketball. Until the question, I asked the question in 2016, why are there literally 4 lines where there should be 2?
All right.
And then we zeroed out 1. I don't know, I couldn't tell you which one was zeroed. I just know that we need $4,800, not double that.
The 8,000 was zeroed because it's in 8,000. There are zeros for Jockey Hollow girls basketball and Jockey Hollow boys basketball.
So, Linda, have we expended money in this account?
We have, and I believe what you're saying is correct, that we probably, for the Jockey Hollow, should be hitting the 8,000 count instead.
So this is not correct.
It should be hitting the 8,000.
Should be hitting the
It's
eight-
not an employee, I thought these would be, usually employees only get the 1,000.
So this is not an employee, so this should be moved to the 8,000. Okay, we need to make that correction.
That's not a problem.
Thank you.
The whole 4,800.
The whole 4,800 is not an employee, it should be hitting the 8,500.
all officials
So
will be in
this
the same
needs to be
place.
zeroed out and it needs to be moved to the correct
Yep.
account.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. John, now you're all set to go.
Uh-huh.
Run quickly.
Bye, John.
Run quickly.
Before somebody calls him back. All right, now we're into nurse overtime. This is another, we have no expenditures in 2019 and we have a $4,900 budget. Do we have actuals for this current year budget in this?
Right, we had a conversation about this. Kay, this was the OT for subs, correct?
This one for the Stephanie one is our
Oh,
nurse
right, right, right.
supervisor. She oversees the nurses, does the nurses' workshops, everything goes to the state, does all that reporting. She gets an additional time to pay to do that for us.
Okay, and is she new doing that? Like, where is this?
We just started doing that because it used to fall under me, but I know nothing about nursing, so I was attending meetings that I knew nothing.
So this
about.
is new. This is a new that started, this is the second.
Year.
So this is, so that first line of the 4,400 is her now taking over that in 2020 and she's gonna continue that in 21. Thank you.
Is this part of a contract? Was the 2020 number part of, so the nurses are in a union?
They are, this is.
They are, but I don't think this is part of the
It's
contract,
not
correct?
part of the contract, it was just we needed a nurse supervisor because I didn't know what they were
Like a
doing.
stipend.
I was not educated enough to do this.
Was this,
Like a stipend?
This is really a
What
stipend,
it sounds like, yeah.
right?
It could be, I mean, it's not, it's just, we never know what the hours are gonna be, what she's gonna
Gotcha.
put in based on what's happening in the district at the time.
Right, so it
Makes
fluctuates. Thank you.
A lot of districts do
Why
that.
is
It makes sense.
If we've been doing it for 2 years, why is there no actual?
Well, no, this is the first year, 2020, and then this will be the second year.
Yeah.
Previous to that, Kay was doing it and didn't know, it shouldn't have been doing it. So now we actually have a nurse who's actually doing the nurse stuff.
when you say it out
And
loud?
what's the
So,
year-to-date?
so that's for both lines.
Yeah, I think so. What's the year-to-date, Linda, in this, for this current year?
I'm sorry?
What's the year-to-date for this, do you know? Well, maybe, I actually maybe have it
Well,
here.
that's what I was just talking to Kay about. There's nothing year-to-date in this line. I'm thinking something's hitting the wrong line. That's why.
Okay, so-
We're just having this conversation.
Okay, if
See
we
it's
can,
hitting the wrong line.
all right, so we need to delve further into this account, Jack, and
Mhm.
figure out what's going on and where this is going.
Yeah. I found the data now. We're gonna figure out where she's getting coded.
Thank you.
Let me take care of it.
Donna, just, Kate, is that 4,900, is that what you believe is correct, that you need?
The 500's
What,
500 is math, I don't know what math 6 is. The 500 down the bottom, I don't know what that, I don't know that part.
Okay.
all right, but I think the point is, let's figure out what the actual is, right? And then we can determine if 4,400 is a real number
Well, they're
or not.
saying there is no actual, they're gonna have to look into it.
They have to but somebody is,
Right.
work is being done.
Yeah.
Somebody's
Someone's
getting
getting
the
charged
money.
somewhere,
Absolutely.
so we have to find that.
Right, and see where it's going to, and was that budgeted also there too?
Right.
Correct. A few questions on that.
Right, because it could be that it was budgeted in both places, so we need to make sure where it is.
And for something that just started in 2020, you know, we really need to understand what the year-to-date spend is.
Right,
So that
absolutely.
we know that number's right.
Well, it would have been last year too, though, that's what I'm saying. She did work last year, so somewhere there's gotta be.
In
that.
2019.
That's why
Oh,
it's
okay.
saying there's no
Oh, okay, so
2019
there is no
actual either.
2019 actual in this.
Yeah, she did work last.
So then we really need to do a,
And find out where that was.
It got
find
changed
out where all that
Mhm.
was.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification, Kay.
I thought it was new this year.
All right, AV overtime, there is none, anything, so we'll just skip that. And then that brings us to union business.
And this is for the MEA president.
Okay,
That pays him time off to,
Correct, this is his time that,
It's 0.2, I think, probably of his salary.
Correct.
He's 0.8
Right, right, right.
teacher, 0.2 union.
Okay.
So when he does union stuff, this backfills his classroom? Is that what this is?
I believe that this is his time that he's given to do that work, is my understanding.
So then how many teaching periods does he teach? Four.
He has one period off to do.
And so this really
And
relates,
that's accounting for that.
this accounts for one period of this?
Yep.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, we will move on to a nurse assistance, and this is all zero, so we'll just move on to this, past that, and we'll bring us to the last account that we're looking at tonight, which is negotiations reserve.
Yeah, and Frank made a number of adjustments here. You want to speak to that?
Certainly. In your current year's budget, you haven't isolated the lane changes or when people put in for degree changes. And when we assembled the budget, it didn't make sense to build it into the teacher salaries accounts for a variety of reasons. The teacher salaries accounts are based on actual people, their exact step. And you don't know who's going to actually get a degree until next year. We received a list, they had to file with us a list of what their anticipated degree is. And that number was pretty substantial, it was over $200,000. So, and we have a list of all the teachers that put in that said, well, here's what we anticipate, yada, yada, yada. So, Jack, Joe, and myself sat down and we looked at a 3-year average of how much actually was used. Every year teachers will put in and they don't follow through in the following year to get their degree. So we put an estimate in here. The original number that you see up here, 239,000, that is the number if every single teacher got exactly what they said they anticipate getting. You'd have to stay with that $239,000. We looked at the historical average and the one that came through, and we felt that we could reduce that by roughly $134,000 based on the history. So what we did then, we took the current people, we looked at all the what the impact would be, and we picked the top 8, the most expensive top 8 of people anticipated degrees, and we put in that number 105,000. Again, it's an estimate. It could be high, it could be low. It's difficult. Your current budget only has like $40,000 in it for lane changes. So we're going to 105, and we've isolated that purposely because your salaried account now shows what your true negotiated salary was in your recent contract. You know exactly what those steps were. Lane changes is a variable you don't know, and we think it's better budgeting to know, to have that variable isolated like we did, and then you can see year to year to year what happens with your lane changes. So
Wait, I gotta ask this question. So when the teacher changes the lane, is their real salary account being hit, or is this account being hit?
this account for next year is strictly, the only thing in this account is lane changes.
Right, as a reserve or as an accrual to say, hey, we don't know who is going to get what, so we're just going to put a number in here that we think is a good estimate. But I, let's say, am on the MA step, doesn't matter what step, I have an MA. Next year, I get my 6th-year degree.
Right.
Where does the additional change, let's say that change is a $4,000 increase by changing lanes, where is that $4,000 actually being hit? What account?
This account.
So it's not going to their actual salary account?
Right, because salary is based on what's actually on the payroll.
Exactly.
Right?
Right, but there's people.
And this is just to account for additional expenditures due to those advanced
Exactly.
degrees.
Yeah.
But once the person has a 6-year degree, then your salary account is never gonna be correct.
Right. But the next year.
The
will
next,
have-
so
Yeah.
what, yeah, that's what I would
So you
expect
got-
would
It will
happen
always
is,
be a catch-up.
it'll jump from here,
Yeah.
for an individual person, not that you're tracking it like
Yeah.
that, but jump from here over to the salary
Yes.
account the following year.
And if you put in your salary accounts right now,
No, totally understand. It's a placeholder because
Yes.
you don't know. But my question is, it needs to hit in actual real time the person's salary account because those will never be correct if it doesn't. Meaning if I'm a first,
next year, when a person gets the degree, and they get a $5,000 kick because of a lane change, all right, we'll hit this line item
I think what
for the additional change. And the following year's budget, you're gonna build their actual salary level into it, and then you look at the next group of lane changes.
I think as long as you're tracking it here and
Yep.
you're accounting for everything,
Yep,
then you can go in and make those changes in the
Right.
following year
exactly.
to the salary account. But what this does by breaking this out is to allow you to more easily track those lane
Exactly.
changes, right?
yeah.
In-
I'm just concerned that what happens when somebody misses it the following year because it's in here and doesn't move it up.
This has to be a
This new-
checkbox on the Director of
Yeah.
Finance's budget checklist that this is.
Yeah.
Right, because quite honestly, if it doesn't get flagged and it doesn't get budgeted properly, we're gonna have a problem yet again
Yeah.
with our finances because we're not properly budgeting people's real salaries.
Well, knowing what we know, I think every budget season is gonna start with this book now, and so that'll
Absolutely.
be our.
Absolutely, line by line.
But you know what I'm saying? So I guess I'm just not following it. I'm at 60,000, I go to 65,000. So in my payroll, we're gonna actually separate out and put in one line, 60,000 to, let's say I'm a first grade teacher in whatever school, and then the other 5,000 is gonna go here?
Yeah, because it's mid-year, right?
Well, no, you would have to have those changes by July 1. You'd have to submit that by July 1. So you're getting paid right from day one on July 1.
That's what I was gonna
No.
bring,
You
bring
don't?
up. You guys are making this way too fluid. For a teacher, it's not.
No.
We have a contract date to hand it in.
October.
Central office is making this sound like I could do this at any time.
No.
You can't.
No.
I get a certain time to hand it in. They know what the raises are.
But that's what I'm saying.
I know you. I was sitting back trying to let everybody. They know what the raises are.
Mhm.
And if you don't, then I don't know how you're giving them a raise. Because I worked here 35 years, and we were told if the paperwork wasn't in central office, we didn't get the raise.
You're absolutely correct. They have to file.
Correct.
There's two steps. The first step is by October 15th, or November 15th, they had to file with the superintendent the anticipated degrees. We have a list of every teacher here that told us we anticipate getting a degree.
Right. Yeah.
We took that number and we said, we're isolating it, here's what the number is we think we need. What will happen now is when they actually carry through and they get their degree,
They don't.
yes, their salary is going to increase and we're going to tap out this line item, this lane change, to apply to their salary. And that way there, a year from now, you'll be able to look back and see, how do we do budgeting for lane changes? Right now, you couldn't tell me how much you budgeted for lane change. You
Right,
don't know
my,
how much it's
but
impacting
my
the
concern
Very
is
true.
that then that teacher, as of July 1, who has a lane change, their line item and actual is not going to be correct.
Yeah, but how do we plan for that in the salary line if we're basing the salary line strictly off the contracted salary? You know what I'm
But
saying?
what if they don't follow through on the
'Cause that's,
degree?
yeah, that's
Well,
the
then
other-
you would
that's the
have,
other
way.
you would,
The other
so
way.
what you would have is, let's say I'm a salaried person, I now am at 65,000, I was at 60, 5,000 of my money is in here, so that account is over by 5,000, but this account should be under by 5,000.
No, we're going to
Steve,
hit this
do you have a-
account for lane change.
Yeah.
We'll hit this account for
Don't
you.
you do a transfer from this account to the actual
the-
salary
to the
account?
salary.
That's what I'm trying to
The same
say.
way the town does? I mean, the Board of Finance just did it recently. They're always in contract negotiations, so they put a reserve, and this is a contract versus somebody going from a lane, but when that contract comes through, they then move X amount of dollars from this account to the regular salary. This goes down, salary goes up.
Correct.
You're still being paid to their one particular line item.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. It
And so
shouldn't
my
go to
question
two
is,
different accounts.
Aren't you doing a transfer?
We can do it two ways. We can do it transfer, just move it into the salary account.
And that way you're right at the
Yeah.
Right,
the end of the
because,
year.
right,
And,
So at
yes,
the end of the year, this should be, if you're right on, this is 0.
this would be 0, and the other one would boost
And
up.
the other account
Yeah.
will be.
right.
Right.
Because then our
That's
salary accounts are never correct.
Right.
And
Well,
quite
they are
hon-
correct. I have
Well,
to
they're-
correct you.
but no,
You
no,
keep
no,
saying
they're
these are
not.
correct. They are correct. It's how you want to define the money that's
If
in them.
I'm an employee who has been budgeted in this budget at $60,000, but because I changed a lane and my salary is $65,000, you're only hitting that line item for, if I'm a first grade teacher at Stepney, $60,000, I'm making $65,000. That's not the correct amount on the line item of what my salary is. Because you're budgeting in this account. So that is not correct, and you're leaving it up to somebody next year remembering, no, it's in this other account, so I have to chew all these
Now,
accounts
let me
up.
stop you right here. We took very specific steps to make sure this was extremely clear, so everyone would know what these lane changes are going forward. Right now, it's buried in your salaried accounts, and we just stumbled across it. We now know that we're estimating $105,000 for lane changes, totally separate from the contract that recently negotiated. When we need to transfer money, we can transfer it in then on September 1 for whatever their salary is, and that will adjust their salary account. But it's clear. I mean, I can't be any clearer. What would you have us do? Put this amount of money
What I
into
would
the-
have done
into
is
the
that
salaried account?
what I would have done is that for the actual year, starting July 1, if I was somebody who changed lanes and my salary is $65,000, that account, whatever line item I am as a teacher, let's call me first grade Stepney, my line item is $65,000 because that's what my salary is. And then you would do a line item transfer out of this account to that account.
That can be done.
Because then you rightfully have the correct salary in the line item of what the person is actually getting paid.
But we're dealing with a budget, and we're trying to show you it's a budget to budget.
Perfect, and that's a placeholder, but in actuals,
When
we need to be
When the budget's
actuals.
adopted, then these figures will be implemented, and we can make the transfer in. But we're dealing with a budget. We're trying to show you how to budget this, so you know what's going on.
Right, and we're talking two separate things. That's great that you're having a placeholder here, but when we start July 1, the actuals need to be correct in the correct line item.
So the transfers are done not in arrears at the end of the year.
Correct.
The beginning.
Correct.
They're done at
Leading
the
into
beginning
July.
of
Correct.
So
Yeah.
you know as of July 1st.
That's a summer task.
That's when,
Right.
Right.
like you have to have your paperwork in
Right.
submitted.
Right.
done.
So really,
And Don, I
we're,
would suggest you all have to approve those transfers.
Absolutely,
So there's your closed loop, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna-
absolutely.
Just like
Jack
our
is
plans
gonna
does
come
it.
forward with a list, and you're gonna have to.
right, this would be a summer meeting item. We have it budgeted this way so we can see transparently what it
And
is.
nobody is, and I am not arguing that you need a placeholder like this in the budget. I'm arguing that when it comes down to actuals, starting on July 1, 2020, it needs to hit the actuals correctly for what the person's
What we're
salary is.
checking now is the date when they have to have degree paperwork into the superintendent.
Perfect.
Can I just ask a quick question on this? I asked about this question in the Q&A. I just want to make sure the Q&A said that in the current fiscal year, this line item has in it the labor attorney, and that in
This account, thank you, Nick, this account, this negotiations reserve, we went back and looked at the history of it. At one point, you had $250,000 in it. Another year, you had $100,000. This account has covered your labor settlements. You paid an attorney out of it, which is not a salaried account. It's a contractual. And so what we did was we isolated only lane changes in this line item. We moved some of the contractual items into the professional service account for the attorney.
so when we go to 3,000 series in
You'll
the middle
see
of
notes in
January,
there where we put specific
we'll see
notes.
pluses,
Yep.
and we have to go back to this, and those net out.
Yeah, yeah. And you'll see that we put notes in the detail saying how much we put in that line item.
The 3,000 has notes that, from what you took out of lane changes and put in there.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we put notes saying this is where it should be. It should not have been in this negotiation reserve account.
Got it.
And there, you'll find notes into that.
So this line item in this year is gonna be in deficit.
I'm sorry, what name?
The this reserve for negotiation line in the current fiscal year will be in deficit.
The 75,000.
The 75,000. That had labor attorney, that had lane changes, and that had negotiated increases.
It's got a number of things in there.
So it's gonna be under.
What is our current, Linda, what is the current actuals for this account right now? Well, I probably have it here, hold on.
It's 24.
24,000.
24,000.
905, so like 25,000 right now.
Oh, then,
Can I
okay.
just go back? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I believe, as far as I know, that the person would get paid on the line item like you're saying.
Thank you.
I don't want to go against anybody, but what I believe used to happen in the past is, this is a 1,000 account. So the monies for the lane changes, they never really went in here, but whatever, if you look at 2018, there's $238,000 budgeted on this line with no actuals. Because what happens is it nets. So if you're overpaid on your line item, so say you got paid, oh, your lane change was $5,000 and it's $5,000 more than what was in the budget, it nets against because it's a 1,000 account.
Correct.
Okay, so
And that was
we're doing it the right
exactly
way.
what I was saying.
I don't want to interrupt, but I'm like, I think we're on the same page, but.
We're currently doing it correctly.
We're currently doing it correctly.
So, we do pay it on the.
Thank you.
Is that-
I think that goes through the salary accounts. Is everybody good with ending here?
Yes.
And then picking up, starting with benefits, on January 6th? And hopefully these will go a little bit quicker. I think we dealt person by person, really going, I don't know if the insurance and the stuff is gonna be like,
That was the one.
I think that's the big one.
That's the majority of our
It's
budget.
necessary, it's a necessary thing.
Absolutely.
Right, and there's a lot of follow-up and answers that we need,
Absolutely. Yep.
and a lot of corrections that we've currently hit that need to be made.
Yeah, so a lot of homework.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, no question. I'll
And-
keep you
and-
updated.
And we're just at the review and understanding point. We really haven't hit if we need to start cutting anymore.
Right.
So
Mhm.
we need a bigger vote.
And Don, it will be helpful if the board can give the superintendent some direction, if you feel you wanna cut 500,000, he could provide.
I think
a
it's
list
too
to you.
preliminary at this point to
I
go
think we
there.
wanna review
No, I'm
everything.
just saying, at some point in the process, if you feel you need to cut whatever number, if the superintendent knows that, he can prepare a list for you of suggestions. It's your budget, you're the one that's gotta vote your date in January, whatever it is. But if he has some direction, he can do some homework ahead of time for you.
Right, it's way too preliminary, and quite honestly, we also need to see what some of these things net out to.
Yeah, bounce out to, for sure.
Right,
Yeah.
and
We found a lot
because
of money.
quite honestly, I already have circled that one with the whole carrier thing, the mail carrier.
No.
Well, plus all those other ones where there was no actuals. and
Right.
they're gonna just pull them out.
Right, so those need to be updated to see how that affects it and changes it.
Again, if we could set aside those, and when you present this.
Sure.
Have that
Mhm.
set aside, okay, here's the budget with these numbers set aside, and say,
Right.
this is accounting nonsense that
Mhm.
we're now catching up.
Mhm.
And just, yeah, exactly. What's the actual increase versus what's the group we're trying to cover? And also remember to get us a report out of anything that has a zero actual in 2019, 2020 to date.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Do we have anything else on the agenda?
I don't think there's anything do you need those policies?
No.
Yeah, let's just be done for the night. Second? All in favor of adjournment? Great, thank you, motion is adjourned.